Chapter 1451. The distance from the Sea of Innocence to the Shui family estate was several million miles. After entering the sea, the city fell under the Shui family's control. Perhaps the Shui family didn't have as much control over the sea, but just as Shui Yang said, the Shui family knew everything about the city and the Shui family. Even if an ant were to burrow its way in, the Shui family would know. The few who entered the room sensed the 7-star lock outside the room. In order to avoid disturbing Yi Rong, they were especially careful. However, in the boundless sea, it was very difficult for them to advance step by step, and there were bound to be mistakes along the way. As the head of the Shui family, Shui Yang had never received any intelligence report. In the end, the person who came was really meticulous and did not give himself away. Or had someone in the Shui family discovered it and reported it, but the emperor hadn't heard of it? Shui Yang would have to think about it himself. Xianji had said all that she needed to say. The other great emperors understood the deeper meaning behind her words. Everyone turned to look at Shui Yang and saw that his expression had darkened. I, Shui Yang, will remember Lady Providence's warning. Shui Yang cupped his hands respectfully at Xianji, then put the matter to rest. His gaze fell on the unconscious Yi Zichen, and he turned to Yi Rong apologetically. Lord of the Big Dipper, this really was the Sea of Innocence's negligence. For this, I deeply apologize. Fortunately, your son is not in any serious trouble, and we have all received a warning. In order to prevent evil people from causing trouble, it is better to send your son to live in the inner Shui family. Living in your inner clan, can you be sure that this won't happen again? I can vouch for him. Zhao Qianling suddenly spoke up. The security in the inner tribe is several times higher than it is here. There's no way something like this would happen in the inner tribe. Zhao Qianhe added, even if he stays in the inner clan, I'll be sure to keep an eye on his surroundings day and night. They needed to mend their relationship with Yi Rong and appease the resentment in her heart. Otherwise, if she was determined to stop Yi Zichen from infusing Shui Mo with starlight, there was nothing they could do. Even though Shui Yang and the Hermit Emperor had told him there were other methods, the chances of success were less than 10%, and they'd have to sacrifice a lifetime's worth of cultivation. Then I'll trust you one more time. Yi Rong snorted. I won't betray the Lord of Big Dipper's trust. Shui Yang hurriedly straightened his face, then said, shall we move your son into the inner clan now? At the very least, we should wait for the Hermit Emperor to investigate the situation, said Xianji. Don't be fooled by Shui Yang's calm demeanor toward Shui Mo. However, ever since he found out that Shui Mo could still be saved, and that they needed the light of the Emperor's star to save her, his mind had been thrown into disarray. As outsiders, the great emperors could sense the change in Shui Yang, but they could only express their understanding. That's right. We have to wait for the Hermit Emperor to come take a look. I wonder where he is right now? Shui Yang smiled sheepishly. Aren't they here now? Just then, the Hermit Emperor's forceful, bitter laugh rang out from outside the room. I'm starting to regret being persuaded by you to come out of seclusion. Ever since I came to your Shui family, I haven't had a single moment of peace. Hermit Emperor, you're a capable man. With you around, we wouldn't trust anyone else, said Shui Yang with a laugh. To put it bluntly, you're squeezing this old man dry. That's what the Hermit Emperor said, but he'd already reached Yi Zichen's bedside. The others moved aside to let him pass. They watched as the Hermit Emperor's hand flickered with green light, rich with vitality. It brushed past a few of Yi Zichen's more important life points. He's fine, isn't he? He just fell asleep. Before long, the Hermit Emperor retracted his hand and glanced at the great emperors in the room. Do you really think my legs are so easy to control? Even if he fell asleep, you should have called me over to see if he was sleeping soundly and if there were any problems with his sleep? Hermit Emperor, please calm down. We really did call you over because we were worried. Not long ago, someone came to Yi Zichen's room. Although the Lord of 7 Stars and I sensed that he was fine, we were still worried, so we asked you to confirm things. Someone came. The hermit emperor furrowed his brows. There were at least 3, said Xianji. The 7-star lock the Lord of 7 Stars left behind wasn't damaged at all, and the Shui family didn't give any warning. When the Lord of 7 Stars and I arrived, we could only vaguely sense a few auras in the room, but we were unable to track them down. Shuiyang, you'd better keep a close eye on your people. The hermit emperor gave Shuiyang a meaningful look. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that after sensing the 7-star lock, the other party would undoubtedly be especially careful. However, Shuiyang hadn't given the Shui family any warning. That was the Shui family's problem. After learning that someone had entered his room, the hermit emperor examined Yi Zichen's body a few more times. I examined him again, and there really are no problems. At the very least, aside from a few hidden injuries, there's nothing noteworthy about his body. You mean? Xianji furrowed her brows. If they were able to enter without breaking the 7-star lock, it seems they're the lord of one of the master stars. Who can say for sure what they're up to? The hermit emperor knit his brows, then placed Yi Zichen's arm back on the bed. Arrange for him to stay next to mine. That way, I can take care of both of them at the same time. Once he wakes up, I'll prepare to open his celestial eye. When that happens, we'll know everything. Open the celestial eye. Yi Rong's expression shook, but before she could say anything, the hermit emperor floated out of the room, hands clasped behind his back. Yi Rong was the only one left behind. She stared intently at the hermit emperor's departing figure. She thought to herself, just who is the hermit emperor? Above the Sea of Innocence, there were 5 people traversing through the void. They'd already left the Sea of Innocence's borders, and they could vaguely make out land. What's the big deal? He clearly hasn't opened his celestial eye, and there's no celestial fate or starlight in his body, yet the higher-ups say he's the Emperor's star? We didn't find the key fragment to the God Emperor's tomb either. What's there to look for? The way I see it, he's long since disliked us and deliberately made trouble for us. We haven't confirmed the Lord of the Stars, and we haven't found the key fragment. We almost offended the Lord of Big Dipper. What we need to think about right now is how we're going to explain ourselves after returning empty-handed. A black-robed old man suddenly appeared in the void in front of them as soon as they passed through the sea region. The 5 experts stopped in their tracks, their expressions vigilant. Someone from the Shui family? No, said the elder with an indifferent smile. The old man smiled indifferently and said, My young miss is quite interested in you and wants to meet you. Who is your family's young miss? I can't reveal that. Please don't make things difficult for me. Chapter 1452. To ensure Yi Zichen's safety, Shuiyang arranged for him to stay in a house next to the hermit emperor's. That wasn't all. The other great emperors took up residence in nearby houses as well. At all times, there were people monitoring the area with their divine senses. They absolutely couldn't let the same thing happen again. If they could enter the 7-star lock unscathed, they had a 90% chance of becoming a master of the stars. Xianji and Yi Rong went to investigate. Although the Society of Saints was established for the masters of the stars, that didn't mean all of them were members. Take the Supreme Hall for example. There were quite a few formation masters who hadn't joined. Su Yun was one of them. They mainly investigated the masters of the stars who hadn't joined the Society of Saints and were at least 5 stars. There were millions of masters of the stars, but if they focused on those who were at least 5 stars, their scope was much smaller. Yi Zichen was left in Xiao Yumei's care. If anything happened, the Hermit Emperor would know immediately. The Hermit Emperor told Yi Zichen to rest, but the room was still full of people. These were all Skyspan students who'd heard about the situation from Bei Bei. They were worried about Yi Zichen's health, so they hurried over to check on him. Yang Jian and the great sage stood guard outside the door, their divine senses interlocked. At that moment, the unconscious Yi Zichen sat up on the bed without any warning. He held his right eye with his hand, then touched his chest. Brother Yi Zichen. Yi. The entire room was in an uproar. Xiao Yumei cried tears of joy, while Pu Jingwan ran out to find the hermit emperor. Why are you all here? Yi Zichen looked at the people in the room in shock, then looked at the sky outside. It was already dark. What's going on? He instinctively touched his eye and chest. At the same time, the hermit emperor walked in. Yi Zichen wanted to bow, but the hermit emperor stopped him. He grabbed his wrist, closed his eyes, and examined his pulse. Do you remember anything before you fainted? At first, my eye hurt a little, then my entire head hurt. Finally, my heart hurt, and then I lost consciousness, said Yi Zichen. The hermit emperor narrowed his eyes, then tore off Yi Zichen's clothes. His palms glowed with dark green light as he probed Yi Zichen's body several times. However, the instant he took off his clothes, the club president of Skyspan Academy froze. Murong Shui and Shui Beibei covered their mouths, their eyes wide with shock. Yi Zichen's body was covered in scars. Some of the scars had already grown new flesh, while others were still scabbing over. What made them even more alarmed was that his left arm below the shoulder was gone. The cut coincided with the scar on his left eye. When they'd first seen Yi Zichen's eye injury, they'd already turned pale with fright. None of them had expected his injury to be so severe. Xiao Yumei couldn't help but cry. Yang Jian and the great sage glanced at each other, then turned away. No one could look directly at his wounds, but Yi Zichen, the person in question, acted as if nothing had happened. He didn't reveal even the slightest hint of it. If the hermit emperor hadn't pulled his clothes away, Murong Shui and the others might never have found out. I can't tell what's wrong. I'll come back tomorrow to examine you again. Thank you, Senior Hermit Emperor. Yi Zichen nodded and smiled. Senior Hermit Emperor, do you think my mother would agree to this? I can't be sure. The Lord of Big Dipper has the final say. The Hermit Emperor glanced at the others in the room. Don't stay here too late. He needs plenty of time to rest. Let's chat for a bit, then leave. With that, the Hermit Emperor left the room. By now, Yi Zichen had already put on his robes. He looked at the others' expressions. You guys must have been scared, he said in a relaxed tone, almost as if he were joking. Murong Shui couldn't help but cry. Beibei bit her lip, thinking about something. The atmosphere in the room grew heavy. Jiangwei, why are you here too? Group activities don't suit you, said Yi Zichen, changing the subject. It does suit me, and it feels a bit awkward. Jiangwei nodded. But your injuries? They're just minor injuries. They're not worth mentioning. Minor injuries? You've lost your left arm, your left eye, and all the other wounds on your body. Those aren't life-threatening, said Jiang Yong. Scars are a man's honor. All right, don't look so sad. At the very least, I'm still alive, aren't I? I even captured that bastard Bai Yulong. Besides, compared to Shui Mo's, my injuries are nothing. At the same time, Xiao Yumei helped Yi Zichen tie his clothes, while Yi Zichen sat cross-legged on the bed. You didn't kill that kid, did you? I left him for Shui Mo so she could personally avenge him. She didn't. Letting him die so easily would be letting him off easy. Now that we've got nothing better to do, we'll go give him a taste of our own medicine. We'll definitely make him wish he were dead, said Jiang Yong. That's good. Don't let him die. So long as he doesn't die, you can do whatever you want to him. But that kid Bai Yulong keeps yapping about how the God Emperor told him to do it. Brother Yi, is that true? Asked Luozi. It's not true. Don't believe him. Yi Zichen denied without hesitation. In truth, the Bai family was raised by the God Emperor himself. When the Bai family was destroyed, the God Emperor was worried about the stability of the God race, so he didn't help. Bai Yulong hated the God Emperor, but he didn't want to see us do well. That's why he wanted to smear the God Emperor's name. He wanted to sow discord within the God race. So that's how it is. That bastard isn't the type to see others do well, cursed Su Lei. And he wants to sow discord between the divine mountains and the God Emperor? It seems we'll have to deal with him a bit harder tomorrow. That way, he won't even have the strength to spout such lies, snorted Chen Guangfa. The Skyspan Academy members were all furious, but Yang Jian, who knew the truth, glanced silently at Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen shot them a meaningful glance, then copied Jiang Yong and the others. He gnashed his teeth and nodded. It was already late at night. The Skyspan Academy members and Shui Beibei left the room. They said they'd come back tomorrow to see him. When only the insiders were left, Yang Jian furrowed his brows. Yizi, you don't really think Bai Yulong was lying, do you? What kind of brain do you have? How could you possibly believe that? Pu Jingwan rolled her eyes. He said that just now because he didn't want them to overthink things. The relationship between the God Emperor and the Divine Mountains still needs to be maintained. It can't be broken. Even someone like me, who's from the outside, understands that. How could you? I'm not from the outside? What are you yelling about? Yang Jian glared at her. I'm just. Shoo. As Yang Jian and Pu Jingwan bickered, Yi Zichen suddenly raised a finger and pointed at the door. Everyone's expressions froze. The great sage was already leaning towards the door. Yang Jian and Pu Jingwan continued to bicker and cover for him, until the great sage reached the door and kicked it open. Ouch! This cry of pain caused everyone in the room to be stunned for a moment. Then, everyone saw the girl crawling up from the ground with her arms, her eyes a little misty. Chapter 1453. Earlier, Yi Zichen had been attacked. When he sensed someone sneaking around outside his room, the great sage and the others assumed it was the same people from earlier. To their surprise, the person outside was Shui Beibei, who'd just left. It hurts. Shui Beibei sat on the floor, her eyes watery. Just now, he hadn't held back at all when he'd kicked the door open. It was easy to imagine the impact. The great sage stood in front of the door in a daze, not knowing what to do. He didn't like women very much, especially a young woman like Shui Beibei. When he saw that she was about to cry, the great sage didn't know what to do. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei ran out of the room and carefully checked on Shui Beibei's condition. Fortunately, it was just a superficial scratch. Even if she didn't apply medicine, her divine power would heal on its own. What are you doing? Shui Beibei sat on the floor, fuming. Xiao Yumei gently blew on her wound and said apologetically, "It's our fault. It's our fault. Didn't Zichen get attacked during the day? We thought it was the same people from the day that came again. It hurts." Shui Beibei wrinkled her nose and pouted. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei helped her back to her room. As they passed by the great sage, Shui Beibei pursed her lips and glared at him. The great sage could only smile apologetically and scratch his head. He nodded apologetically. "Beibei, why are you back? Didn't you just leave?" asked Yi Zichen as soon as he entered the room. Shui Beibei wordlessly took out an exquisite glass bottle and tossed it to him. Yi Zichen caught it and uncorked it. A refreshing medicinal fragrance wafted out of the bottle. "What's this?" "I'm giving you some medicine." Shui Beibei pouted and snorted. "You look like you're hurt pretty badly, so I went back to my room to get it for you. My dad went all the way from the Western Sea just to get it for me. You just have to apply it and you'll be fine. I couldn't even bear to use it myself. I wanted to give it to you, but you—" As she spoke, Shui Beibei, who'd been just a mist, burst into tears. "Beibei, don't cry. It's all that monkey's fault." Yang Jian had met Shui Beibei a few times, and they'd talked quite a bit during the day. Seeing her cry, he hurried over to comfort her. "Hurry up and apologize to Sir Beibei." When the great sage heard this, he walked over with a bitter expression on his face. He squatted on the ground with an awkward expression. "Sorry, old son, was a bit heavy-handed just now. I hope I didn't hurt you." Seeing that Shui Beibei was still crying, Yang Jian stepped forward and punched the great sage. Of course, his punch wasn't particularly heavy, and he felt pretty good as he punched the great sage. "Bebe, look, I beat this monkey for you too. Don't cry anymore." Hearing this, Shwe Bebe tilted her head. Noticing her gaze, Yang Jian began to play even harder. At first, the great sage had tolerated it for Shwe Bebe's sake, but the more Yang Jian fought, the more addicted he became. He couldn't hold back any longer. He grabbed Yang Jian's arm, his eyes flashing with golden light. "You did it on purpose, didn't you? What do you mean by that? Aren't you just trying to make Princess Bebe happy?" Yang Jian frowned. "Is that so?" The golden light in the great sage's eyes grew even brighter, and Yang Jian's aura intensified. "What? You want to fight? You think I'm afraid of you?" Pu Jingwan and the great sage started fighting. Just as Pu Jingwan and the others were about to stop them, they saw Shwe Bebe giggle. When she saw this, Pu Jingwan didn't step forward to stop them. She'd seen them fight many times. After a while, they'd naturally stop. Those two clowns. Yi Zichen couldn't help but sigh. They'd clearly been putting on an act to make Bebe happy, but who would have guessed they'd get serious? Yi Zichen chuckled as he watched the two of them fight from the inside to the outside. He chuckled, "Bebe, thank you for your concern. You got injured to avenge second sister. It's my duty. I just couldn't beat that by Yulong back then. Otherwise, I wouldn't have needed you," said Shwe Bebe proudly, wiping away her tears. "Bebe, you're right." Yi Zichen chuckled. When Yang Jian and the great sage had fought before, they had only been testing each other out, and it had been rather interesting. But now, there was a loud explosion outside, and the god power that was attacking was getting stronger and stronger. Even Shwe Bebe's eyes flashed with worry as she pointed at the two outside. "Are they all right?" "Don't worry, Bebe. You're not familiar with them yet. Once you get to know them, you'll understand. They bicker and fight like it's nothing out of the ordinary," laughed Pu Jingwan. "Really? They really are weirdos." Shwe Bebe curled her lips. Yang Jian and the great sage's battle was felt by the entire Shwe family. The other great emperor's divine senses were deep, and when they realized it was the two of them, they didn't come out of their rooms. However, the great emperors could feel how strong they were from their fight. The hermit emperor walked out of his room and glanced around. He sighed, then set up a few layers of restrictions around Shwe Mo's room and ignored her. That night, the two of them caused quite a disturbance in the Shwe family. Shwe Bebe watched for a while, then looked away. She naturally sensed how strong Yang Jian and the great sage were, but she'd grown up in the Sea of Innocence and was used to seeing emperor-level experts. She wasn't particularly curious about the two of them. She pursed her lips, pouted, and looked at Yi Zichen. "During the day, that blockhead came looking for me. He said you wanted to talk to me about something. What was it?" Yi Zichen's expression froze. He glanced meaningfully at Xiao Yumei and Pu Jingwan, and the two of them set up a few restrictions around the room. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, Shwe Bebe couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing? Why are you being so careful?" "Bebe, I want to ask you something important. Can you promise not to mention it to anyone else?" asked Yi Zichen. "Not even my dad?" asked Shwe Bebe. "No." Yi Zichen nodded. Shwe Bebe blinked in thought for a moment, then nodded. "Seeing as you're acting on behalf of big sister and second sister, I can promise. Ask away." "Then let me ask you something." Yi Zichen's gaze darkened, and his expression grew solemn. "Earlier, when we went to the prison, you didn't come with me. Was it because you were afraid of the prisoner on the third floor?" "Who's afraid? I told you I didn't like the smell," said Shwe Bebe haughtily. "All right, I know you don't like the smell." Yi Zichen nodded and smiled. "Then let me ask you this. Do you know who the prisoner on the third floor is?" "Of course I do." Shwe Bebe nodded matter-of-factly. Chapter 1454. As he asked this question, Yi Zichen grew nervous. He looked closely into Shwe Bebe's eyes, not daring to miss even the slightest change in her expression. "Do you want to know who he is?" Unexpectedly, A troubled expression appeared on Shui Bei's face. She supported her face with her hands and pouted. In truth, I don't know all that much about him. Then can you tell me everything you know? Asked Yi Zichen. Of course. Shui Bei pursed her lips. From the moment I was born, or rather, from the moment eldest sister was born, that criminal has been locked up in the dungeon. You might not understand, but the prisoners in the dungeon are all outsiders who came to the Shui family to steal information. You might not know this, but all the prisoners are outsiders who came to the Shui family to steal information, said Shui Bei. But my dad won't kill them. He'll just lock them up and let them go after a certain amount of time, said Shui Bei. Yi Zichen sighed. Great Emperor Shuiyang is truly merciful, sighed Yi Zichen. My dad said that cultivation isn't easy. These people came to the Shui family for the sake of their clans. Besides, they've all been captured. They didn't do anything to harm the Shui family, so he spared their lives and told them to turn over a new leaf, explained Shui Bei. What about the third floor? That criminal is a bit strange. When I was young, I didn't know any better, so I snuck into the dungeons to play, then went to the third floor. He gave it to me. Then I came out. Shui Bei changed the topic abruptly. Then I went to find Big Sis and Second Sis. Big Sis told me not to go back to the dungeons. Since then, I've never been inside again. Then, Yi Zichen was a bit anxious. Shui Bei felt like she was telling a story. She'd said quite a bit, but she'd never gotten to the point. What's the rush? I'll tell you slowly. Shui Bei glared at him. I'm just too curious. I asked Big Sis, but she wouldn't tell me why, so I went to find Big Sister Qianhe. Big Sister Qianhe told me that a major criminal was locked up there. She didn't know the specifics, but batch after batch of prisoners left the dungeons, but he'd always been locked up on the third floor. I don't know how long he'd been there for. She also said that in the entire Shui family, perhaps only Dad and the two patriarchs knew. She told me not to ask too much. No more? Yi Zichen raised his eyebrows. No more. Shui Bei nodded. Since you didn't want me to ask any more questions, of course I didn't. After that, I didn't take a single step into the dungeon. That's all I know. I've told you everything I can. Didn't you say that you were very curious? Did you give up without getting any results? When I was young, I was afraid of my dad. Sister Qianhe told me to ask him, but I didn't have the guts, muttered Shui Bei. Is Great Emperor Shuiyang the only one who knows? Yi Zichen fell silent. Now, he was full of curiosity about the prisoners in the third floor of the dungeon. He really wanted to know who the devil was. He had a hunch. The fiend imprisoned inside was definitely not an ordinary fiend celestial. Rumor had it that before the current demon emperor, Kuei Lin, had ascended to the throne, the old demon emperor had disappeared from the demon race in his prime. Since then, there had been no news of him. Later, the demon gods had supported Kuei Lin, but even now, there had been no news of the old demon emperor. When the old demon emperor was still alive, the demons were the strongest of the three races. The Yao emperor, the eastern monarch Tai, was no match for him. Back then, the gods didn't have a god emperor, so the five elements great emperor and the current god emperor, Zhou Wu, controlled them. When such a tyrannical old demon emperor suddenly disappeared without a trace, some said he'd gone to the outside and been killed. Others said he'd grown tired of his position and retired to live in seclusion. But in the eyes of those with a discerning eye, none of these reasons made sense. No matter how strong the outsiders were, the old demon emperor was the strongest beneath the transcendence realm. There was no way the outsiders could kill him without a trace. If he'd grown tired of his position, he could have chosen to trust the demon emperor and abdicate. He cared deeply about the demons, so there was no way he'd just go into seclusion and leave the demons leaderless. The demon's strength had been overtaken by the gods and Yao. Yi Zichen had only heard these rumors casually, so he hadn't paid them much attention. But now, in the Shui family's dungeons, he'd found a prisoner stronger than any great emperor he'd ever met. He was terrifyingly strong. He couldn't help but associate this with the demon emperor who had disappeared from the demon race. If the prisoner really was the old demon emperor, then why was he in the Shui family's dungeons? What did the Shui family have to do with the old demon emperor's disappearance? Could it be that the Shui family was in cahoots with the demons? At that moment, Shui Bebe jumped onto the bed, grabbed Yi Zichen's face, and yelled, "Hey, what are you thinking about? I'm talking to you. Did you hear me?" It was only then that Yi Zichen came to his senses. Shui Bebe let go and put her hands on her hip. "What's wrong with you? I'm talking to you, but you're ignoring me?" "Bebe, what did you just say?" asked Yi Zichen. "That big idiot's transmission device has a bunch of minigames on it. I really like playing them. I want one too." Shui Bebe frowned. "No problem. I'll give you one in a few days," agreed Yi Zichen. "All right, it's a deal." Shui Bebe giggled and jumped off the bed. Yi Zichen said, "Bebe, you absolutely can't tell your dad or anyone else what we talked about today. Got it?" "I know, but it feels so weird lying to my dad. Besides, if you really want to know the specifics, you'll have to ask him." Shui Bebe blinked, then laughed evilly. "Let me tell you, Dad loves second sister the most. I heard from Grandpa Hermit Emperor that you're the only one who can save her. Given your personality, you'll definitely save her unconditionally. But I suggest you use this to threaten my dad. Who knows? He might tell you everything. I'll give you some advice. That treasure is yours. But you have to give it to me. I want a good one. I don't want anything too bad." Shui Bebe batted her eyes and giggled mischievously. She muttered to Yi Zichen to hurry up and give it to her, then dashed out of the room. When Xiao Yumei and Pu Jingwan heard that, they couldn't help but stare in shock. It's always said that children cheat their parents. There's nothing wrong with that at all. For the sake of a phone, they'd even sell their own father. I really don't know what great Emperor Shuiyang would think. But that's one way, isn't it? No. Yi Zichen shook his head. Threatening Shuiyang was out of the question. He had to save Shuemo. Chapter 1455. Jingwan, don't join in the commotion. Xiao Yumei smiled warmly, tilted her head, and looked at Pu Jingwan. Earlier, Zichen repeatedly warned me not to tell great Emperor Shuiyang. If I threatened him with saving Shuemo, wouldn't I be committing suicide if I told him about the third floor? I was just saying. Who told him to actually do it? Pu Jingwan pursed her lips. She rubbed her chin with her fingers and pouted. But I'm still curious. Who exactly is locked up there? Is it worth being so cautious? You even warned Bebe not to tell great Emperor Shuiyang. When she heard this, Xiao Yumei's expression shifted. Never mind Pu Jingwan, even she'd found it strange from the start. He'd mysteriously told her and Pu Jingwan to set up seals around the room, then repeatedly warned Shui Bebe not to tell great Emperor Shuiyang. After Shui Bebe's explanation, he'd been in a daze for a long time. The person locked up there might be an extremely important figure. Yi Zichen grinned, his eyes flashing with excitement. If my suspicions are correct, this is absolutely news that will shake the entire upper three realms. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei were stunned by Yi Zichen's description. Is that so? It's just that I'm not completely sure yet. My guess is that the Shui family might be involved as well. I'll have to carefully consider whether or not I should ask Shuiyang for inside information. We're back. At that moment, Yang Jian and the Great Sage, who'd just gotten into a fight over a minor matter, walked in, supporting each other. Based on their injuries, it was clear that they hadn't held back in the slightest. However, it was hard to imagine that they'd managed to rely on each other and come back. You too. Pu Jingwan put her hands on her hips and roared at them. As soon as the brothers entered the room, they sat on the ground and looked around. Did Princess Bebe leave already? She left a long time ago. Did you think she'd wait for you two to fight it out before leaving? Pu Jingwan glared at them, then scanned the room with her divine sense. You two went too far. It's all because of that monkey, Yang Jian said angrily. How is it my fault? If you let me, old son, hit you with a stick, wouldn't it have been over a long time ago? The great sage shouted. Why should I let you hit me? Is there something wrong with my brain? Yang Jian glared. You punched me so many times before? Do you think I, old son, would let you hit me for free? The great sage roared. Hey, I think you still want to fight, right? Who's afraid of whom? The two of them quarreled until their faces were stuck together, staring at each other. Neither of them was willing to give in, as if they would start fighting again at the slightest disagreement. Pu Jingwan's face darkened. She walked in between them and punched each of them. Behave yourselves, both of you. Be gentler. Yang Jian and the great sage clutched their heads and roared, while Xiao Yumei chuckled. Yi Zichen glanced at the ointment Shui Beibei had given him, then tossed it at Pu Jingwan. Put some on them. Pu Jingwan grumbled, but she still rubbed the ointment on Yang Jian and the great sage's bodies. It really was worthy of being called a sacred medicine that great Emperor Shuiyang had personally gone to the West Sea to get for Beibei. Not long after applying it, their terrifying wounds were completely healed. So this is the medicine the third princess of the Sea of Innocence sent? It's so good. The great sage stretched out his arms. This medicine must be worth quite a bit of money, said Yang Jian. This is a sacred medicine from the West Sea. There's no way it's sold in the outside world. If you put it up for auction, it'll fetch at least 9 digits, said Xiao Yumei. Instantly Yang Jian, the great sage, and Xiao Yumei's eyes widened. They stared intently at the little bottle in their hands. Poverty has limited my imagination, Yang Jian complained tearfully. After learning of the ointment's value, Pu Jingwan tried to take it for herself several times, but Xiao Yumei noticed and snatched it back. Yi Zichen's wounds hadn't healed yet, so she wanted to give him the rest of the ointment. Pu Jingwan called her a miser, but she refused to give up. If she had the chance, she'd take the bottle and hide it away. Yi Zichen chose to ignore her petty actions. He glanced at the sky outside. It's getting late. You should all go back and get some rest. But Yang Jian, great sage. Yang Jian and the great sage raised their brows. Yi Zichen spoke up. Tomorrow morning, you two should head back to Heavenly God City and join the Upheaval Alliance. How can we do that? The two of them shot to their feet at the same time. We just attacked you during the day. You've been in a dangerous situation lately. If we leave, what will you do? Don't I still have Yumei and Jingwan? Laughed Yi Zichen. The two of them, Yang Jian and the great sage, looked them up and down. Normally, they wouldn't say anything, but at a critical moment like this, entrusting Yi Zichen to them. Xiao Yumei was devoted to Yi Zichen, but she was too gentle and indecisive. As for Pu Jingwan, there was no need to even mention her. She was born to be a money grubber, and she was too playful. If she stayed behind, she wouldn't even know who would be taking care of whom. If she met an enemy, she might even be bribed with money. Why are you two looking at us like that? Pu Jingwan glared at them. However, the second before she frowned, she secretly hid the ointment in her sleeve. Naturally, everyone in the room saw this. Yang Jian and the great sage were speechless. Look, the nature of a money grubber. Even at this time, she did not forget to take away the valuable ointment. However, her method of stealing things was a little too clumsy. Xiao Yumei furrowed her brows and snatched the ointment back. Pu Jingwan began to grumble and sulk. Yi Zichen knew full well how much the great sage and Yang Jian cared about him. He smiled at them. Now that I've been sent to the Xiao family's inner mansion, you can feel the auras of several great emperors protecting me. What happened during the day can't happen again. But the Xiao family cannot be delayed. None of us can confirm when the Xiao family will betray the God race. Yang Jian, you must hurry. He has to be sent to the Xiao family. But Yang Jian was somewhat hesitant. He naturally wasn't worried about the Xiao family's safety. He was more concerned about Yi Zichen's situation. Even if the great emperors were present, they had too many things to take care of. They couldn't possibly be as vigilant as he and the monkey. Furthermore, even if he and the monkey were present, the assailants had still managed to sneak in during the day. It would have been fine if he'd just left, but the monkey wanted to follow them back to Heavenly God City. Please. At that moment, Yi Zichen lowered his head. Chapter 1456. The next morning, the cultivators of the Sea of Innocence didn't say any unnecessary goodbyes. All they saw was 2 streaks of black and gold light streaking across the sky. Yi Zichen stood in front of his door, gazing up at the 2 streaks of light. By his side, Pu Jingwan occasionally tossed raisins into her mouth. Xiao Yumei walked out of her room, her coat in hand, and draped it over Yi Zichen's shoulders. It's getting cold. Let's go back to our rooms. In the end, we still took this step. Yi Zichen let out a soft sigh as he watched the black light gradually disappear into the sky. He turned his head abruptly and saw that the people in front of the door had all returned to their rooms. The great sage and Yang Jian had left. Now that they were back in Heavenly God City, they'd slowly push ahead with their plan to infiltrate the Shao family. Yi Zichen had only come up with this idea on the spur of the moment, and he didn't know if it was the right thing to do. The instant they entered the room, Yi Zichen and the others stopped and frowned at the window. Just now, they'd clearly sensed a seal envelop their room. If they guessed right, the purpose of this seal was to prevent yesterday's incident from happening again. Furthermore, judging from the strength of the seal, it seemed to be the work of some great emperor. However, it didn't take long before another restriction was laid down. Then a third, a fourth. In less than an hour, Yi Zichen's room was surrounded by at least 10 seals. The Shui family really values you. Pu Jingwan stared blankly for a moment, then grabbed another raisin and tossed it into her mouth. These 10 seals were no ordinary ones. They were all at the imperial lord level. In other words, the great emperors who'd stayed with the Shui family for a short time had set them up. The seals intersected with each other. If you wanted to pass through them, never mind a living person. Even an ordinary grain of sand would not be able to escape their eyes. However, Yi Zichen found it hard to believe. Were the great emperors really doing this to prevent yesterday's incident from happening again? If that were the case, they should have set it up as soon as it happened. There was no need to wait until this morning. Here they go again. After a short pause, the restriction outside the room came in quick succession. Pu Jingwan couldn't be bothered with them anymore. She walked up to the window, put on her headphones, and started singing. However, her voice was truly demonic. It was far different from the modern realm Pu Jingwan Yi Zichen knew. For the entire morning, the restriction formation outside had not stopped. After leaving the Sea of Innocence, the great sage and Yang Jian still hadn't reached Heavenly God City, and there was no news of them in the group chat. Yi Zichen leaned against the wall and sat in the most comfortable spot under the sunlight. At that moment, "Yumei, do you know who that person is?" In the sky above the Shui family, several great emperors had been busying themselves in the sky. Suddenly, an old man about the same age as the hermit emperor appeared among them. When the other great emperors saw him, they all turned to look at him. He bowed as a junior. In the god race, the division between seniors and juniors was very simple. It was the realm. The great emperors in the sky were already the cream of the crop of the god race, and each of them was in charge of a divine mountain. Yet, existences like them actually bowed to the old man as a junior. Who was that old man? Most importantly, Yi Zichen had no impression of the elder at all. An old man who could make the great emperors act in such a manner shouldn't be a nameless nobody. Where did this old man come from? Great Void Temple? Supreme Hall? Or Great Freedom? I don't know him. After a few glances, Xiao Yumei shook her head. Although she'd been on the Divine Mountains for far longer than Yi Zichen, she'd always lived in seclusion. She didn't necessarily know much more about the outside world than Yi Zichen, who'd only been here for a few years. As far as she could remember, she'd never seen such a person, but judging by the other great emperor's reactions, if I'm not mistaken, he should be from one of the Divine Mountain's holy lands. Judging from his clothes, he looks like someone from the Supreme Hall? A formation master? When she mentioned the Supreme Hall, the only people she could think of were formation masters. The great emperors chatted with him for a long time. Yizichen vaguely sensed that, as they spoke, their gazes fell on him several times. Finally, the great emperors retreated, leaving behind only the Lord of the Big Dipper, Yi Rong, and the old man. Instantly, heaven and earth rumbled. A terrifying storm came from the void above. The few great emperors who had left the void were now in midair. Their divine power surged and weaved a net made of divine power in midair, blocking the storm in the void. Before long, the Lord of the Big Dipper, Yi Rong, lit up with starlight and shot into the sky. At the same time, an azure spiritual formation diagram appeared beneath the old man's feet. This is... Yizichen didn't know why, even though he didn't know much about formations, he had the vague feeling that he recognized this diagram. The bright starlight was completely infused into the spirit formation, and the spirit diagram completely merged with the starlight. The star diagram released countless beams of light, like a rain of starry swords. They fell irregularly on the ground or on the roof. As the swords fell, a miniature spiritual formation diagram appeared where they landed. The diagram flickered and intersected to form lines that looked like the Milky Way. "It's so beautiful!" Pu Jingwan's eyes lit up. A starry sky spiritual formation. Yizichen abruptly called out the formation's name. The other great emperors glanced at him, then quickly averted their gazes. "Zichen, you recognize it?" Yizichen shook his head. "I don't know either. I've never seen it before, but now that I'm looking at it, I don't know how I know." Up in the sky, Yi Rong was still pouring starlight into the formation diagram. As starlight poured into it, the rain of swords never stopped. However, Yi Rong's face was deathly pale, and she bit her lips so hard that blood seeped out. The Shui family's mountain peak was completely enveloped by the swords. The old man seemed ready to stop, but Yi Rong continued biting her lip. "Enough!" Suddenly, great Emperor Chao Feng's furious roar reverberated through the sky. He waved his hand and severed the connection between Yi Rong and her starlight. The instant he did, Yi Rong coughed up a mouthful of blood and fell into great Emperor Chao Feng's arms. Not long after the starlight dissipated, the diagram beneath the old man's feet disappeared. However, the smaller diagrams remained proudly intact. Starlight intersected, making it seem like you were standing in the middle of the Milky Way. It was dazzling. "Mom!" When he saw Yi Rong cough up blood, Yizichen immediately took to the skies, but Xian Ji blocked his way. "Your mom will be fine. You don't need to worry about that." Chapter 1457. What on earth are you doing? Yizichen, who'd been brought back to the surface by Xian Ji, lowered his gaze and asked. The great emperors descended as well. "Is this the youth you were talking about?" The elder who'd set up the starry sky formation diagram walked over. The other great emperors nodded at him. Yizichen looked around. By now, he was surrounded. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to see my mom." The Lord of Big Dipper simply used too much starlight. She didn't hesitate to injure herself to draw it in, all for your sake. Don't disappoint her. As for how long it'll take for her to recover, that's up to you," said the Hermit Emperor. "I don't understand what you're talking about." Yizichen knit his brows, then glanced at the elder from the Supreme Hall. "How do you know about the starry sky formation? It seems you're right. It really is him." The elder didn't answer Yizichen's question. He simply smiled at the great emperors. Yizichen furrowed his brows. The great emperor's words were confusing. He couldn't figure out what they were talking about. "All of you, don't just stand around. Get out." At that moment, the Hermit Emperor pointed outside. Yizichen hadn't even noticed that the formation diagram beneath the Supreme Hall Elder's feet was now beneath him. The great emperors left the room. The Supreme Hall Elder shook his head and laughed. That old geezer, he's still so hot-tempered. Get out, shouted the Hermit Emperor. The Elder smiled bitterly and left. Once he was gone, the Hermit Emperor waved his hand, and the formation diagram lit up with dazzling starlight. The starlight completely surrounded Yi Zichen. Then the Hermit Emperor pointed at a prayer mat he'd prepared beforehand and gestured for Yi Zichen to sit. Senior Hermit Emperor, what exactly are you doing? Asked Yi Zichen. Sit. The Hermit Emperor's eyes brimmed with undisguisable solemnity. Yi Zichen noticed his solemn expression and pursed his lip. I know you have a lot of questions, but now isn't the time to explain. Instantly, the world before Yi Zichen's eyes transformed into a vast river of stars. The stars were bright and dazzling, but he was just a drop in the ocean in this river of stars. His heart was filled with confusion as he stood in the river of stars. The great emperors around him had disappeared. The Hermit Emperor, who had been sitting across from him, had vanished as well. In the entire Milky Way there was only him, and the sky was filled with stars. Close your eyes and feel the stars calling out to you. The Hermit Emperor's voice rang out in Yi Zichen's ears. Yi Zichen frowned and shouted, his eyes filled with confusion. What the hell is going on? When everything is over, you will naturally understand. Right now, what you need to do is to feel the summoning of the stars and open your Emperor Star Eye. Star Eye? Why do I feel like I've heard this phrase somewhere before? The Outer Realms? Yi Zichen knit his brows. He couldn't remember where he'd heard the term celestial eye, but he remembered the Hermit Emperor's words. He closed his eyes and felt the call of the stars. Is that so? Yi Zichen floated in the Milky Way and sat cross-legged on the ground. Inside the star chart, he did the same. The other great emperors had already spread out to the four corners of the Shui family. Ding dong. Outside the star map, Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei's phones buzzed. They took out their phones and saw that Yang Jian and the great sage's messages had appeared. Erlang Shin, we're here. Idealism. Monkey King, we're here. Idealism. Monkey King. I can't believe I let you beat me to it. Erlang Shin. There's no point in saying that. I won this time. Yang Jian and the great sage, who had no idea what was going on, started chatting in the group. Not only that, but they also messed around with Yi Zichen. Erlang Shin, Yi, do you want me and the monkey to fight right now? Idealism. Invincible adorable beauty. Don't mention Yi Zichen. Ultimate charmer. Shu, don't argue. Erlang Shin, what's wrong? Monkey King, what's going on? Invincible adorable beauty. Yi Zichen is in the middle of opening his celestial eye. He doesn't have his phone on him. If you have any questions, wait until he's done. Erlang Shin, celestial eye? Monkey King, what do you mean? Ultimate charmer, Shu, quiet. Invincible adorable beauty. Even if I told you, you wouldn't understand. Just shut your eyes. As soon as they sent the message, Xiao Yumei and Pu Jingwan ignored Yang Jian and the great sage. In order to prevent their phones from interrupting Yi Zichen's opening, they even set their phones to vibrate. Jingwan, you're from the outside. Do you know what celestial eyes are? Asked Xiao Yumei. I don't belong to the constellations, so I don't know much about celestial eyes. However, when I was on a mission, I talked to a few of the masters of the stars. Opening celestial eyes is for communicating with the stars. As for the specifics, I don't know. Pu Jingwan shrugged. Is it dangerous? Asked Xiao Yumei worriedly. It shouldn't be. Pu Jingwan didn't sound confident. I'm not sure either, but with so many great emperors here, I don't think there'll be any danger. Don't worry, Yi Zichen's mother is participating. Given how much she cares about him, do you think she'll be able to participate? You're right. That's true. Xiao Yumei nodded. Yi Zichen's gaze landed on the star chart. By now, Yi Zichen was completely enveloped in starlight. It was as if he draped a long robe of starlight over him. The smaller star chart scattered about him like a cluster of stars was also twinkling. It really was like the starry sky. As for Yi Zichen, he'd already cast aside all distracting thoughts and immersed himself in the Milky Way. His eyes were clearly closed, but he could already vaguely sense the position of the stars. He could sense their twinkling brilliance, and he could even sense their kindness. Suddenly, a dazzling star, several times brighter than the others, appeared in his perception. As soon as this star appeared, all the other stars lost their luster. "You're here!" A gentle voice suddenly called out in his sea of consciousness. "Who are you? Are you the Emperor's star?" Yi Zichen asked inwardly. "That's me. I am the leader of the stars, the North Myrtle Imperial Star." Suddenly, Yi Zichen felt an intense imperial aura wash over him. The twinkling stars lost all their luster, as if they were subjects submitting to their emperor. "Do you see? That's me. The stars bow before me, and even heaven and earth dare not compete for glory. This junior has long since heard of the Emperor's star. You're the leader of the stars, and I'm well aware of that. However, I'm rather curious. Is the one speaking to me now the North Myrtle Star? Or the previous master of the stars?" "Naturally, it's my Emperor's star." "Stars can talk?" "Of course." "That's easy, then." Yi Zichen smiled inwardly. "This junior is here to activate the Emperor's star's celestial eye. I wonder if you— In truth, I've been waiting for you." The Emperor's star's tone was as warm as ever, and Yi Zichen smiled. He hadn't expected everything to go so smoothly. As soon as he entered the Milky Way, he received the Emperor's star's call. Furthermore, judging from the Emperor's star's tone, he'd been waiting for him to activate the celestial eye. The light of the star chart grew brighter and brighter. The other great emperors clenched their fists tightly. "Shui Yang!" the Hermit Emperor roared. Shui Yang immediately rushed to Shui Mo's room and used his divine power to carefully carry her out. He'd been waiting for this moment. When Yi Zichen opened his celestial eye, starlight was bound to appear. Shui Mo only wanted. Chapter 1458. As the Hermit Emperor roared, Shui Yang took Shui Mo in his arms and retreated 1,000 meters. The other great emperors looked over at the Hermit Emperor as well. They realized that the star chart that formed the Milky Way was trembling violently. The light around Yi Zichen instantly dimmed. It was already on the verge of collapse. The starlight surrounding Yi Zichen was also expelled. The smile on his face vanished, replaced by undisguised agony. "Hermit Emperor!" roared Xianji. The Hermit Emperor's eyes brimmed with confusion. "What exactly went wrong?" "Senior, since you've been waiting for me all this time, please open the celestial eye for me." Yi Zichen laughed as he conversed with the Emperor's star. However, before he could finish speaking, the tone of the Emperor's star, who had always been very gentle, suddenly changed. "Delusional. Senior, you're neither a god nor a demon, yet you're delusional enough to dream about obtaining the Emperor's celestial eye? You're delusional. Someone like you doesn't deserve it at all. I'm going to strip you of your celestial fate and banish you from the Milky Way forever." The Emperor's star's furious roar reverberated from the depths of Yi Zichen's heart. Instantly, Yi Zichen saw the stars, which had previously been friendly to him, radiate killing intent. The overwhelming killing intent terrified him. He didn't understand why the Emperor's star would suddenly act like this. "Senior! Scram! Leave my kingdom forever! You don't deserve the Emperor's celestial fate or the Emperor's celestial eye. I'm going to strip you of your celestial fate and banish you forever." The Emperor's star's furious roar reverberated through Yi Zichen's sea of consciousness. Yi Zichen's eyes snapped open, and he saw the countless stars in the Milky Way twinkling. It was as if they'd transformed into the Emperor's star themselves, repeating his words over and over. "You don't deserve it, you don't deserve it, you don't deserve it." Ah! Yi Zichen knelt in the Milky Way, clutching his right eye and howling in agony. At the same time, the Shui family estate's star chart's links snapped, and the star chart shattered one after another. Yi Zichen knelt cross-legged in the middle of the spiritual formation and howled in agony. He curled up into a ball, his back protruding. Hermit Emperor, what's going on? Up in the sky, Xianji couldn't do anything else. She rushed down, and the other great emperors landed as well. Their expressions were grave as they watched Yi Zichen howl in pain. All of you go back. The Hermit Emperor shouted urgently. That's not what you said in the beginning, shouted Xianji angrily. Go back. The Hermit Emperor's eyes widened, and he hurriedly shouted, immediately activate the sky-shrouding formation. You, hurry up and go. Do you want the Imperial Star to be exposed? When the emperors heard this, their expressions changed. Xianji could only grit her teeth and fly into the void. Just as they were about to set up the formation, the star chart beneath Yi Zichen's prayer mat collapsed. Buzz. A halo of light gradually spread outwards, sweeping across the sea of innocence in the blink of an eye. The Emperor's star is opening its eyes. Almost at the same time, the major powers of the god, Yao, and demon races received this signal. Countless divine senses swept outwards. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. A few of the restrictions that the great monarchs had set up in the morning were already broken. Quick! The Hermit Emperor's aura was in disarray, and the other great emperors gnashed their teeth. It's too late. Someone's already noticed this place. Bayan knit his brows. Sky shrouding. Xianji roared, and the sky-shrouding formation activated. Although someone might have already noticed, the other great emperors continued to pour their divine power into the formation. The Sea of Innocence. In the blink of an eye, quite a few major powers sensed the Sea of Innocence's location. Someone's going to find this place in less than 6 hours. I'm not afraid of them, but I'm afraid they'll send someone like Zhou Wu, someone who'll take advantage of the chaos to steal the Emperor Star's celestial fate. Should we retreat? We can't let anyone else find out about the Emperor Star's true body just yet. Hermit Emperor. Xianji bit her lip and roared. Shuiyang didn't know what to do either. The Hermit Emperor's aura was in chaos, but he ignored Xianji, nor did he respond to the other great emperors. What exactly went wrong? The Hermit Emperor furrowed his brows and muttered to himself. Yi Zichen knelt on the ground and howled even louder. At that moment, the wings on his back unfurled, and an enormous 30,000-meter-tall demonic image appeared behind him. Surging devil chi was released from his body, but in this devil chi, there was also a saint that was incompatible with it. The aura of purity. I understand now. The Hermit Emperor suddenly understood, then turned to Xianji and roared, why does he have the aura and blood of demons in him? Isn't he the son of the Lord of 7 Stars? Why does he have the blood of demons running through his veins? Why didn't you tell me in advance? Not only that, why does he have the aura of the demon race, which was wiped out long ago? I don't know. Xianji's lips quivered, but she didn't know what to say. The star chart radiates holy light to its limits. Even the tiniest bit of demonic energy is magnified without limit. You. The Hermit Emperor coughed up a mouthful of blood. The destruction of the star chart was a huge blow to him, the formation's controller. As he roared, Yi Zichen flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Terrifying purple light burst forth from his eyes, and sinister black lines crept into them. He punched out. The seals the great emperors had set up were as brittle as paper. Yi Zichen's fist tore through them, and the surrounding buildings were destroyed as well. Humph! He breathed heavily through his nostrils. Suddenly, he tilted his head to look at the few great emperors in the void. He disappeared. When he reappeared, he was right in front of Bayan and punched out. Boom! The fierce wind from his punch left several bloody gashes on Bayan's face. The other great emperors sensed how terrifying it was. Should we attack? By now, the great emperors were all hesitant. Yi Zichen's demonic nature had consumed him, and he'd lost all rationality. But in the end, He was still a candidate to become the Emperor Star's lord. The great emperors were all hesitant. They didn't know whether or not to attack and suppress him. If they attacked, given Yi Zichen's current state, they'd have to go all out. None of them could guarantee that they wouldn't accidentally injure him. The Shui family members had already been evacuated to a safe location. Shui Bebe looked up into the sky, her eyes brimming with anxiety. Everything had been fine last night. How could this have happened all of a sudden? You're always so worrisome. Chapter 1459. Big Sis. Shui Bebe's eyes flashed with delight, but she quickly furrowed her brows and scratched her head. That's not right. Big Sis can't come out right now. Hong Hong. Great Emperor Shui Yang knit his brows. When the Zhao sisters saw this, they froze, especially when they heard what she said. Marry her? Have you been devoured by your demonic nature? Shui Hong Hong gazed coldly at the demonic Yi Zichen. The man Shui Hong Hong, fancy wouldn't be such a coward. Humph. Yi Zichen cocked his head and glanced at her, then clenched his fists and swung them at Shui Hong Hong's face. Hong Hong. Shui Yang and Zhao Qianhe shouted frantically. In her panic, Zhao Qianhe dashed directly towards them. Everyone yelled at her to get out of the way, but Shui Hong Hong simply smiled. She didn't try to avoid them in the slightest. Instead, she giggled as Yi Zichen's demonic nature swallowed him whole. If you punch me like that, I might die. Can you bear to do it? Yi Zichen suddenly stopped. Just as his fist touched the tip of Shui Hong Hong's nose, Yi Zichen's fist came to an abrupt halt. The illusory demon's hair came to a stop as well. The massive wind from his fist scattered her coiled hair into disarray, and even the nearby buildings collapsed. A streak of red slid down Shui Hong Hong's face. She'd stopped her fist, but the fierce wind had still cut her face. The red was dazzling against her fair skin, but it matched her long, red hair. Zhao Qianhe stopped, and the other great emperors stayed put as well. Although the situation just now had been extremely dangerous, Shui Hong Hong's appearance seemed to calm Yi Zichen down. As expected, you can't bear to kill me. She gently wiped the blood from her face. Her fingertips were bright red, and she held them in front of Yi Zichen's eyes. But do you see? You hurt me. Arr! Yi Zichen, who just stabilized his emotions, roared hoarsely once more. He covered his right eye with his right hand and his aura surged. All of a sudden, he stopped. The demonic energy around him grew stronger, and when he looked at Shui Hong Hong, there was no trace of emotion in his eyes. Hong Hong, be careful, Zhao Qianhe reminded him, but Shui Hong Hong smiled and walked up to Yi Zichen. Whenever she took a step forward, Yi Zichen would take a step back. Yi Zichen shook his head violently and reached out to stop Shui Hong Hong from approaching. Are you afraid of hurting me again? Shui Hong Hong narrowed her eyes and smiled, but at that moment, she suddenly took a step forward and hugged Yi Zichen tightly. You want to run away after injuring me? How could it be so easy? Remember this wound on my face. I will keep it for the rest of my life. As long as it doesn't disappear, you will always owe me. You owe me for all eternity. Before I pay you back, you cannot be swallowed by this little devil. Wang, okay? He gently wiped the blood from his finger onto Yi Zichen's palm. Suddenly, the purple light in his eyes dimmed. Shui Hong Hong took advantage of the situation and pushed him back, allowing him to land on the prayer mat. The great emperors were flabbergasted by the sudden turn of events. The starry sky formation diagram had amplified Yi Zichen's demonic aura, and he'd already been swallowed whole. The great emperors didn't know what to do. They hadn't expected Shui Hong Hong to suddenly appear. She was like a savior descending upon the world, awakening Yi Zichen from his trance. 4 great auxiliary stars, what are you waiting for? As Shui Hong Hong shouted, 4 figures suddenly appeared in the sky. With Yi Zichen at the center, they landed in 4 different directions: north, south, east, and west. The minister of the east, the minister of the right, the minister of the south, and the minister of the north. The 4 auxiliary stars were the current 4 auxiliary stars: Inshang, Goyuzhan, Suyun, and Su Lu. Su Qing's expression changed. She was the empress of the 9-tailed fox clan, as well as the current lunar star. Even she didn't know Su Lu was the current martial star. But before long, a hint of a smile appeared in her eyes. Martial star. Handing the 9-tailed fox clan over to her really wasn't a bad choice. Yin Shang, that child. The elder from the Supreme Hall reached out, his face filled with shock. It seemed he knew Yin Shang, but the minister of the left's identity scared him so much that his beard nearly fell off. That seems to be Emperor Aming's only disciple, said someone who recognized Suyun. Only Goyuzhan. He had an ahog on top of his head and looked dispirited, as if he hadn't woken up yet. Yet, such a fellow stood in the position of the right minister of the 4 great auxiliary stars. Who's that? The great emperors couldn't help but look at each other. None of them knew who he was. However, the auxiliary stars' mission was to assist the emperor's star, especially the 4 great auxiliary stars. Since the minister of the left had chosen this youth, he naturally had to be extraordinary. The 4 auxiliary stars all took their positions. None of them said anything unnecessary. As soon as they landed and stood around Yi Zichen, he saw them lift their hands into the air and transform into stars. Starlight shot into the sky and connected with the 4 great auxiliary stars. The Milky Way flickered with starlight, and the 4 auxiliary stars shone brightly, enveloping the Emperor's star. 88 stars of the heavens, activate! Suddenly, the 4 auxiliary stars spoke in unison. Under the 4 auxiliary stars' control, the entire Milky Way shone with starlight. In the sky above the Shui family estate, Su Qingyan, the lunar star, lost control of her starlight and rushed into the astral river. Xiao Yumei was also affected, and a pillar of starlight emerged from the top of her head. The Lord of the Big Dipper, who'd been sent away to recuperate, or the stars of the star altar. So long as they were related to the stars, it didn't matter if they knew who they were or not. Their starlight would flow uncontrollably into the Milky Way. On this day, the Milky Way flickered with starlight, and the stars shone resplendently. They weaved together a beautiful diagram of the Milky Way. Buzz. Another fluctuation emanated from Yi Zichen's body, and a beam of golden starlight shot from the Milky Way into Yi Zichen's head. Before long, Yi Zichen's body was enveloped in a layer of pure, holy starlight. His shriveled left eye bulged, as if it had been reconstructed. "Dad, you want to save me? What are you waiting for?" Shui Honghong asked softly. When Shui Yang heard this, his expression froze. He carried Shui Mo outside the star diagram, then used his divine power to carefully pull her inside. In Shui Mo's chest, a beam of silver starlight shot into the sky. This starlight was identical to Xiao Yumei's, the light of a natal star. However, before long, the light of her natal star was severed. The starlight falling from the Milky Way split in two, one above Yi Zichen's head and the other in Shui Mo's arms. Chapter 1460. The starlight of the stars was resplendent and moving. Throughout the territory of the gods, demons, and demons, countless stars were drawn by the 4 great auxiliary stars. Their starlight connected with their own stars, creating a beautiful map of the Milky Way. Billions of cultivators looked up at the Milky Way above their heads, stunned by its beauty. In a barren wasteland, all that greeted their eyes was a withered yellow. The dried ground was riddled with winding cracks. The northern wind howled and howled. In this remote and uninhabited place, a very inconspicuous little tent was erected on the ground. There was even a bonfire in front of the tent. The flames were bent by the northern wind. An iron kettle was placed over the bonfire, and steam bubbled out of it. An old man sat on a rock near the bonfire, drinking freshly boiled water from a porcelain bowl. The Emperor's star and the auxiliary stars have caused quite a commotion. The old man looked at the map of the Milky Way in front of him, a satisfied smile on his face. 88 stargates have opened. It's been a long time since I last saw them. The last time I saw them was… Little e, when was that again? When the ancient Star Lord was still in power, he opened them once, said the man with the longbow. 100 million years have passed. This era has chosen 2 emperors. It seems that the Emperor Star Lord with 4 auxiliary stars is the one who will transcend in the future. The old man chuckled. If nothing unexpected happens, the 4 auxiliary stars won't choose the wrong master at the same time. The man with the longbow nodded. Let's pack up here. We should go back. Your lover is still waiting for you in the clan. The old man withdrew his gaze from the Milky Way. Back then, it was just a wisp of my soul that landed here. It's nothing. I only brought her back because I pitied her. Please don't think too much about it. The man with the longbow had a frosty look in his eyes. The Star Lords we sent have yet to return. They won't. The old man smiled calmly. We never expected them to return after we sent them out. It's fine if they don't return. They don't belong to our clan in the first place, and their absence proves the truth we want to verify. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man stood up from the rock and placed the porcelain bowl on the iron kettle. With a tilt of his palm forward, the burning flames of the bonfire drilled into his sleeves. Let's go back now. The north wind is making my bones hurt. If I stay here any longer, I'm afraid my cold illness will act up again. The strong man with the longbow nodded and carried the iron pot and other weapons on his back. The old man also put on a loose robe at this time, but his turbid eyes glanced at the galaxy map again, and then he shook his head and left the barren land on foot. Starlight poured into his body. Shui Mo was placed by Yi Zichen's side. After receiving the Emperor Star's celestial fate, her body was no longer pure silver. Instead, faint traces of gold could be seen. After a few breaths of time, Shui Honghong pushed Shui Mo out of the star chart. Shui Yang and the Zhao sisters hurried over. Even though the Emperor Starlight had only filled her body for a short period of time, she could already feel the starlight flowing through her body. The stripes crawling all over her body seemed to have encountered an undefeatable natural enemy. Wherever the starlight passed, the stripes would automatically make way for it. A golden radiance appeared at her heart and between her eyebrows. Little Mo Zhao Qianling looked at Shui Mo with teary eyes. Shui Mo's condition seemed to have improved slightly. She couldn't help but secretly wipe away her tears. The Hermit Emperor stepped out of the star chart and walked over to Shui Mo's side. Take her back to her room. Her condition has stabilized completely. When they heard that, Shui Yang and the Zhao sisters were overjoyed. Under Zhao Qianling's repeated questioning, Shui Yang revealed the method the Hermit Emperor had mentioned to him: blood transfusion. He'd give Shui Mo all of his essence blood, then use his Imperial Lord-level essence blood to reconstruct her meridians. However, the price he had to pay was that Shui Yang would return to mediocrity, and they had to consider whether or not Shui Mo's body would reject the transfusion. If it weren't for Yi Zichen, they really might have had to do this. Fortunately, they'd received the Emperor Star's starlight. Even if it was just a drop of it, it was enough to stabilize Shui Mo's condition. Zhao Qianhe dragged Shui Mo back to her room. The stars were still as bright as ever, and the Emperor Star's starlight was like a dazzling river of stars. It poured down from the heavens and poured into Yi Zichen, who sat in the center of the 4 auxiliary stars. An hour passed. 2 hours passed. The starlight poured into his body without end. Over the past 2 hours, Yi Zichen's aura had changed. Compared to before, it was gentler and more domineering. Compared to before, it was sharper and more pleasant, as if bathing in a spring breeze. Right now, his aura was like that of an emperor. His mood was unfathomable. This was especially true for Su Qinyan, who was the lunar star. She sensed a hint of unease in Yi Zichen's aura. This was the Emperor's star, the emperor of all the stars. Hello. At that moment, Shui Honghong suddenly landed in front of Xiao Yumei and Pu Jingwan. She'd whispered sweet nothings to Yi Zichen earlier, but not a single one of them had fallen into the ears of the two of them. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Xue Honghong's relationship with Yi Zichen wasn't shallow. "What do you think you're doing?" Pu Jingwan glared at her and took a step forward. Xiao Yumei was gentle and didn't like to fight. Pu Jingwan wasn't the type to take a single grain of sand lying down. Back in the sky, that was one thing, but now she was standing right in front of Yumei. What? Was she trying to show off? "You are?" asked Xue Honghong softly. "I'm Yumei's best friend. What do you think you're doing?" Pu Jingwan glared at her. "I just want to say a few words to her," said Pu Jingwan. "Don't go too far. Our Yumei is kind-hearted and magnanimous. She doesn't want to fuss over what you did to Yi Zichen in the sky, but don't think we're easy to bully. Yumei doesn't want to fight with you, but I've got a lot of free time on my hands right now. How about we give it a try?" "You misunderstand," said Xue Honghong with a bitter smile. "We're both fated stars of the Emperor's star. What's there to fight about? I came here because we've never met before, and my sudden appearance might cause your friend to overthink things. In truth, I came here because someone asked me to step forward and tell me how to resolve this problem." "Someone told you?" "That's right. I was in seclusion when a senior suddenly appeared and told me what was going on outside. He said he needed a fated star to guide him. The only fated stars here are me, my little sister, and Yumei, right?" Chapter 1461. Xue Honghong's gentle tone made Pu Jingwan retract her hostility. "That's it. Of course." Xue Honghong smiled warmly, but then her gaze suddenly turned cold. "I'm just here to let you know that from now on, I'm in charge of the fated stars." "Fated stars?" Pu Jingwan quickly realized what Xue Honghong meant. Wasn't Xue Honghong here to steal the head of the harem? And to think she'd had a good impression of Xue Honghong. As expected, a woman's first instinct was the most accurate. Xue Honghong had come here to cause trouble. "I think you..." "Jingwan." Xiao Yumei grabbed Pu Jingwan's hand and shook her head. She smiled calmly, took a few steps forward, and looked directly into Xue Honghong's eyes. "There's no point in telling me all this. I've never thought about fighting over the position. All I want is for Zichen's safety, and that's enough to set me at ease. I don't care who's in charge. If you really want to fight, you shouldn't be looking for me. Zichen has reincarnated several times, and someone has followed him several times. If you really want to fight, go talk to her." "Ha!" Xue Honghong laughed coldly. "What do you mean by that?" Pu Jingwan glared at her. Xiao Yumei reached out and pulled her back. The way she saw it, there was no need to argue over something like this. If Xue Honghong wanted to fight, then let her. Xiao Yumei had no such intentions. Xue Honghong studied Xiao Yumei for a while, then looked away. "Interesting. I'll remember you. Before I leave, I'll leave Yi Zichen in your care." As soon as she said this, Xue Honghong's body suddenly distorted. Pu Jingwan's eyes widened in anger. She shouted for Xue Honghong to explain herself, but the distorted Xue Honghong suddenly disappeared. "Big sister." Xue Beibei ran over just in time to witness Xue Honghong's final moments. "Take good care of little Mo. When I come out of seclusion, I'll take you out to eat something delicious." Her ethereal voice reverberated through the sky. Only now did the great emperors notice Xue Honghong's departure. Not only that, but after she left, the 4 auxiliary stars around Yi Zichen also transformed into distorted afterimages, disappearing into the Xue family estate in a shower of starlight. Specks of starlight fell to the ground, and the 88 star doors closed. The starlight within the Star Master returned to his body. Above the river of stars, only the Emperor's star was still flashing. However, the dazzling river of stars gradually dimmed and turned into nothingness. Thus, the brilliant map of the galaxy came to an end. "Yumei, I can't believe you can endure this. Who is that woman? She wants to fight for the position of the mistress of your harem, and she even said that you can take care of her. You can't spoil people like her. The more you compromise, the more she'll push her luck. Pu Jingwan was furious. Xue Honghong was clearly provoking Xiao Yumei, but Xiao Yumei acted as if nothing had happened. Pu Jingwan was infuriated. She took a deep breath, then frowned at Xue Beibei. Beibei, what did you just call that woman? Big sister, she's my big sister. She's very nice. I saw Big Sister here, so I wanted to come talk to her, but I was too late. Xue Beibei's face creased in disappointment. Your big sister is very nice. She. Suddenly, Pu Jingwan stopped in her tracks and looked towards the Sea of Innocence. The other great emperors did the same. Someone's coming. Su Qingyan furrowed her brows. She'd predicted that someone would arrive in the Sea of Innocence within 6 hours. She hadn't expected them to arrive so soon. They'd only just entered the Sea of Innocence, so it would take them another hour or so to reach the city. They sure are fast, said Bayan. You guys stay here and keep an eye on the Master of the Stars. I'm going out to take a look. This is Shui Yang's territory. I refuse to believe they dare behave atrociously here, roared Shui Yang. I'll go with you, said Bayan. The two great emperors passed by the city and headed for the Sea of Innocence. The elder from the Supreme Hall thought for a moment, then nodded at the others. It's not good for others to see me here. Farewell. A formation diagram appeared beneath his feet, and in the blink of an eye, he transformed into a beam of light and disappeared from their line of sight. The others stood vigilantly around Yi Zichen. Starlight had already filled his body, and his celestial eye had condensed. Now, all they had to do was wait for the instant he opened it. So long as the Emperor's celestial eye opened, even if the people in the Sea of Innocence came in, it would be useless. They just didn't know how long it would take for it to open. Halt! Who dares trespass on the Sea of Innocence? Shui Yang flew over from the Xue family estate and stood on the surface of the sea. Bayan stood by his side, looking calmly ahead. Before long, several figures appeared in their field of vision. So it's King Satsuma, King Luoyu, and King White Lotus. It was the three of them. Deep down, Shui Yang was astonished. The northern divine mountain belonged to the god race. Even if someone had received word of the Emperor's Star's opening, the god race should have been the first to arrive. He hadn't expected 3 Yao Kings to arrive first. Shui Yang's expression froze, then he smiled. Great kings, welcome to my Sea of Innocence. I hope you won't blame me for not coming out to greet you. Ocean Emperor, Lord 7. The 3 Yao Kings cupped their hands. Lord 7-inch was how they addressed Great Emperor Bayan. The dragon had 9 sons, and Bayan was the 7th. As a result, Yao were used to calling him Lord 7. May I ask why you've suddenly come to the Sea of Innocence? Asked Shui Yang with a smile. If we want to get closer to the Sea of Innocence, why don't we pay a visit to my estate? Great Emperor Shui Yang wouldn't refuse us, would he? Said King Satsuma. It's my great honor to have you visit my estate as guests, said Shui Yang sincerely. It's just that my daughter has recently contracted a chronic illness, so I'm no longer receiving guests. Besides, you might not know this, but the Sea of Innocence's relationship with the God Emperor has been fraying recently. If I invite you to my estate right now, the God Emperor might overthink things. You're not giving us face, Ocean Emperor, said King Luoyu. It's true that it's been a bit inconvenient lately. If you're really here for a chat, Spirit Sea City is quite close, and I have a residence there as well. We can go there and chat, said Shui Yang. We've come in person, yet you're inviting us to a side residence? You're looking down on us a bit too much, aren't you? King Luoyu's eyes were cold. We're already here. If we go to Spirit Sea City, we'll be a bit tired. Shui Yang made it clear to you that the Xue family's second princess has contracted a serious illness. She can't meet people like you, who radiate killing intent. Recently, the God Emperor has been at odds with the Sea of Innocence. If he receives you, he'll overthink things. Be sensible, said Bayan. Lord 7, You've been in the God realm for too long. Have you forgotten that you're a Yao? King White Lotus, who'd been silent all this time, stepped forward. Bayan laughed, and the hidden dragon's sword suddenly appeared in his hand. It's been tens of thousands of years since I've seen a Yao who dares speak to me like that. It seems my impression of them has faded. Chapter 1462. Above the sea, thunderclouds rumbled. The hidden dragon's sword hummed. Every now and then, lightning crackled and crackled as it struck the blade. Streaks of lightning swirled around it. Bayan's expression darkened. He wasn't as good-natured as Shuiyang. Why would he waste so much time with these monster kings? If he wanted to advance, he'd just have to ask the sword. The raging waves caused the sea of innocence's waves to churn, and the turbulent waters concealed a murderous aura. The expressions of the monster monarchs changed. Facing Bayan, who was known as the strongest expert of the god race, these monster monarchs didn't dare to act rashly. Ocean Emperor. They had no choice but to ignore Bayan. Instead, they turned to look at Shuiyang. At the end of the day, this was the Sea of Innocence, Shuiyang's territory. Whether to enter or not, Shuiyang was the one to decide. Seventh Lord's will is my will, said Shuiyang without hesitation. It seems that our intuition was right. There is indeed someone in your residence that is worthy of our visit. King Luoyu's eyes flashed, and his lips curled into an arrogant smile. Seventh Lord and Ocean Emperor aren't giving us any face. We're monster kings, after all. We can't just retreat like this. Then let's try, said Bayan coldly. Several Imperial-level auras clashed above the sea, so much so that the void above it turned pitch black. When the insufferably arrogant beasts beneath the sea sensed these auras, they quietly tucked their tails between their legs and fled in panic. They didn't dare fight back. Thunder crackled through the air as they hovered above the sea, staring at each other for a long time. Haha, what's going on? I can already sense the auras of so many of my old friends from so far away. At that moment, a few more figures appeared outside the sea. When the monster kings, Shuiyang and Bayan looked over, they saw 6 figures hurrying towards them. They were the heads of the Tuoba, Frosty North, and Zhili clans. They were the heads of the Northwest Divine Mountains Bien family, the Northeast Divine Mountains Jing family, and the Central Divine Mountains Xin family. Wow, all the gods, monsters and demons are here, and they've sent 3 people each. Fair enough. The leader of the Frigid North clan was a brawny man who didn't have horns on his head. He was wearing a snow bear fur coat. He glanced at the sea, smiled calmly, then turned to Shuiyang and Bayan. Sea Emperor, Lord 7th. I wonder if the 2 of you are here. Are you waiting for us? Ha ha ha. How could we have the face to have 2 great emperors come out of the city to welcome us? Divine Arbiter. Shuiyang glanced at the Divine Arbiter. She must have come because Zhou Wu had sent her. His Excellency the God Emperor sensed strange energy fluctuations in your area. He was worried that the Sea of Innocence was in trouble, so he sent me here to help. Then I really must thank the God Emperor for his good intentions. Shuiyang snorted. The Divine Arbiter smiled and nodded in response, not minding the deeper meaning behind his words. It's been 1,000 years since anyone from the Sea of Innocence has come to visit, but this time 9 of them came at once, said Shuiyang, laughing. Isn't the Ocean Emperor well aware of why so many of you have come? Compared to the God race and the Yao race's nonsensical speech, the Demon race's performance was much more straightforward. The patriarchs of the 3 devil clans were all smiling, and so were the God clan and the Yao clan. Although they'd never spoken to each other in private, their intentions were clear. They'd come to a tacit understanding. It seems you want to force your way in, said Shuiyang coldly. Who asked you to say that? Isn't it up to you, Ocean Emperor, to decide whether or not we force our way in? If you let us in, who would want to fight? We might even end up hurting ourselves. At our cultivation levels, a single injury would cost us a lot of resources, and we'd need a long time to recover. don't you think? The frigid North Clan head's words were full of threats, but he was speaking to Shuiyang. Only Bayan and Shuiyang remained above the sea. Their battle prowess couldn't be underestimated, but everyone here was a peerless emperor. If they really fought, it was hard to say what would happen. Divine Arbiter, didn't Zhou Wu ask you to come help? You've seen for yourself that these people intend to trespass on the Sea of Innocence. Shouldn't you fulfill your responsibilities? Said Shuiyang. His Excellency the God Emperor only asked me to go to your clan's aid, not to tangle with them. All I can do now is stay out of their way. However, I have to go take a look at your residence. The Divine Arbiter smiled calmly, then took a step back. All right. Shuiyang had never considered asking the Divine Arbiter to intervene. Of all the clans under Zhou Wu's command, the Divine Arbiter clan was the most loyal to him. Her Tao of Space was a headache for both Shuiyang and Bayan. So long as she didn't attack, she could deal with the others. Finally, let me remind you all that you'd best go back. Otherwise, you'll end up hurting our relationship. Shuiyang's eyes flashed fiercely. Bayan never had much to say to outsiders. If they wanted to get past him, they'd have to ask the sword. The waves rose higher and higher. The gods, Yao, and demons who'd come to visit looked on with grim expressions. They'd come at the behest of their ancestors. They'd gone to the Shui family to gather intelligence. Being trapped here wasn't what they'd expected. However, Bayan and Shuiyang had been famous for a long time, so no one dared rashly approach them. Now, all they needed was someone who could set an example. Then allow me, Beihan Shi, to experience the might of your two great emperors. Besides, Ocean Emperor, you're not here in your true form. In front of the frosty North Clan's pagoda, the raging sea was instantly frozen solid. The waves were frozen as well, transforming the area into an icy domain. The frosty North Clan was a bit different from the other demons. They lived in the northernmost region of the demon realm, the frozen domain. They didn't cultivate the demons' traditional techniques, but rather, ice. Their ice arts were as strong as the Yao's nine-tailed heavenly fox. The boundless sea was instantly frozen solid. It was clear that Beihan Shi's ice arts had long since reached its peak. Now that he'd made his move, the others rushed to the pagoda as well. Like the breath of a primordial beast, a turbulent aura swept towards Bayan and Shuiyang. The turbulence of the aura caused the waves that were sealed in ice to be crushed into pieces of ice. Listen to the thunder. Even in the face of several great emperors, Bayan's expression didn't change. He raised his hidden dragon sword high into the air. Thunder rumbled in the sky, and the experts from the god, Yao, and demon clans couldn't help but grimace. But none of them expected. Bayan, there's no need for you to do anything. Shuiyang took a step forward, pushed his hand back, then looked at Beihan Shi and smiled. Chapter 1463. The shattered ice was swallowed up by the waves. The waves surged violently, but at that moment, a crack appeared. Everyone watched as the sea split in two. The entire region had been cut open, and beneath the raging waters, they could vaguely see a strand of azure light. The great powers of the god, Yao, and demon realm's eyes widened. They could sense that there was something beneath the sea that made them feel fear. At some point, Shuiyang had donned a robe as blue as the sea, and his eyes glowed with golden light. A godhead. This was the godhead Shuiyang had condensed before he became the Sea Emperor. When they saw it, the great emperors couldn't help but stare in shock. None of them knew that Shuiyang had once ascended to godhood. Perhaps it was more accurate to say that very few people in all of the god, Yao, and demon realms knew. Even Bayan couldn't hide his astonishment. If he'd ascended to godhood, then what was hidden beneath the sea? A god-given artifact. Do you know why I'm called the Sea Emperor? Shuiyang stared at the terrified great powers before him, then smiled coldly. That's because, as long as I'm in the sea. There was a loud splash, and an azure Neptune's trident broke through the surface of the sea. As soon as the trident appeared, The waves of the Sea of Innocence grew even more turbulent. The sky above the sea turned pitch black as ink. A storm was brewing. The divine arbiter furrowed her brows and separated the space around her. The other experts allowed the water to splash over them, then stared solemnly at the trident and Shui Yang, who'd transformed into a god of the sea. In the sea, I am invincible. I am a god. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Yang blurred into a blur. He grabbed the trident with his right hand, then thrust it straight at Beihan Shi. Icy rain. The pattering icy rain fell from the void, and every single blade was like a divine dagger. Given how fast they were falling, anything they touched would leave behind a bloody gash. You really don't understand. In my sea, the ice element is the bane of my existence. Shui Yang's eyes were cold. Rain returns to the sea. The ice blades instantly turned into drops of seawater, returning to the ocean. The sea god trident also cut a giant crack in the void, piercing Beihan Shi's chest with unstoppable force. Beihan. Before everyone could pale, the northern frost stone that had been pierced suddenly shattered into an ice sculpture. A substitute? Shui Yang frowned. Not long after, the northern frost stone appeared 100 meters away. I never would have guessed that we'd have such a delightful surprise on our return. Great Emperor Shui Yang of the Sea of Innocence is actually an apotheosis cultivator. Ha! Shui Yang laughed coldly. Everyone, you've all seen it for yourself. Shui Yang isn't someone I can handle on my own. Don't just stand there and watch. Attack. Don't forget why we're here, said Beihan Shi. When the other almighty experts heard this, their divine power surged. However, the divine arbiter remained uninvolved, just as she'd said, and ignored their battle. Old Shui. Beihan called out. Shui Yang simply smiled and shook his head, indicating that he didn't need to do anything. Then, his sea god trident glowed brightly. Sea burial. All the water in the sea roared into the air. Waves thousands of meters high rose up like sea giants, slamming the almighty experts back into the water. Sea devour. As soon as they hit the surface of the sea, an enormous abyss opened up, threatening to swallow them whole. Freeze. Beihan Shi furrowed his brows. The sea froze, but his ice seal couldn't contain the raging waters. If it froze even the slightest bit, the waves behind it would smash it to pieces. The other almighty experts didn't even have a chance to use their abilities. The sea's pressure had already rendered them immobile. Shui Yang seized this opportunity to transform into a beam of light and stab towards King Liu. Stop! At that moment, an urgent shout rang out from the direction of Without Embroiling City. The familiar voice caused Shui Yang's sea god trident, which had been aimed at King Luoyu's divine infant, to deviate slightly. The trident pierced through his shoulder. King Luoyu cried out in pain. He wanted to come out, but he felt as if countless hands were tugging at him from beneath the surface. He couldn't move. Blood slowly spread through the water. When the vicious beasts hidden beneath the surface smelled it, they stealthily rushed over. Shui Yang stopped and looked in the direction of Without Embroiling City. Why are you here? What are you doing? Zhao Qianling glared at him. At the same time, she sent Shui Yang a few subtle glances. They'd been husband and wife for a long time, but they still had a tacit understanding of each other. With just a few glances, he understood what Zhao Qianhe was trying to say. Hurry up and let them all out. You're making enemies for the Sea of Innocence. I already said that little Mo is gravely ill and recovering, but these people don't know what's good for them. I tried to dissuade them, but they still want to attack the Sea of Innocence. How can I not teach them a lesson? Snorted Shui Yang. Even so, you can't do this. Who do you think they are? Do you think the Sea of Innocence's future will be peaceful if you hurt them? Zhao Qianling and Shui Yang were playing along. Hurry up and let them go. We can talk things over. Freeze. Shui Yang called out, and the turbulent waters calmed down. The invaders, who'd almost been swallowed by the sea, hurriedly crawled out of the water. When the vicious beasts sensed that their targets were gone, they staggered away as well. "Shui Yang!" roared King Luoyu, who'd been stabbed in the shoulder. The Satsuma king had already sealed his blood vessels and fed him a pill. "What, you don't like it?" said Shui Yang, his eyes narrowed. His sinister gaze instantly shut King Luoyu up. The terror of being dominated by the sea god was still fresh in his mind. "You're still acting fierce?" Zhao Qianling glared fiercely at Shui Yang, then dragged him to the side and smiled. "Please don't take offense, but Shui Yang's daughter has a serious illness. It's not appropriate for outsiders to visit our clan. My daughter's body is very fragile right now. Any hint of killing intent or ferocious intent will cause my daughter's condition worsened." "This is the first time I've heard of it," the leader of the Jili tribe said. "I'm sure the Divine Arbiter can testify on our behalf. She should know how serious my daughter's injuries are." Zhao Qianling's eyes flashed with cold light as she looked at the Divine Arbiter. The others looked at the Divine Arbiter as well, then heard her speak. "Shui family's second princess injury is indeed very serious, but I am very puzzled by Jade Lake Palace Master's words, as if your daughter's injury was caused by me. Also, before the God Emperor ordered me to come here, he asked me to bring some healing medicine for your daughter. In other words, all of you still wish to enter the Shui family estate?" Zhao Qianling asked. The others remained silent. Zhao Qianling hesitated for a moment, then said, Then come. However, I hope that everyone will restrain their auras for the sake of my daughter's injuries, lest my daughter's injuries worsen." Chapter 1464. No one would have guessed that these people, who'd been on the verge of fighting to the death, would be restrained by Zhao Qianling's sudden appearance. "Please." Zhao Qianling gestured for the experts to enter without embroiling city. Was it really that easy to get in? Shui Yang's attitude was unyielding. In order to keep them in the sea, he'd even exposed the fact that he'd ascended to godhood. However, they'd truly witnessed Shui Yang's strength in the sea. This wasn't even his true body. Just his clone alone was enough to completely suppress them. If it were his true body standing here, King Luoyu wouldn't be the only one injured. All of them. Even if it was just Shui Yang's clone, he was determined not to let them in. Judging from the situation just now, the experts of the three races wouldn't be able to take even half a step into the sea. Unless, of course, the Divine Arbiter intervened. Unfortunately, Great Emperor Baiyan hadn't done anything either. If he did, the result would still be unknown. To their surprise, Zhao Qianling had suddenly appeared. She'd even managed to convince the stubborn Shui Yang to let them in. Of course, Shui Yang's attitude was as unyielding as ever, but Zhao Qianhe persuaded him otherwise. Although Shui Yang and Zhao Qianhe's conversation was quiet, the others still heard them. Zhao Qianhe was worried that if they were hurt, they'd anger the factions behind them. That was a reasonable explanation. The crowd glanced over at Shui Yang and noticed that the Great Emperor's expression wasn't particularly pleasant. When he sensed their gazes, Shui Yang glared at them. "Once you're inside, you'd better behave yourselves. If you reveal even the slightest hint of anything harmful to my precious daughter, I don't care who's backing you." Shui Yang snorted coldly, hefted his trident, and led the way. The other Great Emperor's expressions froze, but they didn't argue. They followed him through the sea of Without Embroiling City and into Without Embroiling City. The Shui family estate was in shambles. When Yi Zichen's demonic nature swallowed up the Shui family estate, the damage was especially severe. Around 30% of the houses had collapsed, and the ground was covered with flower petals. Countless flower fairies had nowhere to rest, and they flapped their wings as they floated in the air, looking quite aggrieved. In order to help Yi Zichen open the Emperor Star's Eye of the Celestial, he'd erased his star chart. Before Shui Yang left, Yi Zichen hadn't opened his celestial eye yet. Now, his right eye was bandaged. He stood in front of the collapsed buildings, with Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei at his side. Not only that, but there were many handsome men and beautiful women in the Shui family's inner courtyard that he had never seen before. They all looked about the same age as Yi Zichen. Their auras were majestic and heroic. They were undoubtedly the elites of the new generation. Shui Yang, who'd returned to the Shui family estate ahead of time, frowned. The other great emperors all turned to look at him. After a brief exchange of glances, Zhao Qianling hurried over with the other spying experts. "Are you satisfied now? As you can see, the Shui family has no place to entertain you," snorted Shui Yang, his expression dark and his tone unfriendly. All of the experts frowned. It seemed the Emperor's star had already opened its celestial eye. They glanced around indifferently. To tell the truth, there were far too many people they'd never seen before. It was hard to tell just who had opened the Emperor's star's celestial eye. "Hey, we have a guest." Chao Feng and the other great emperors stepped forward. When the Yao kings saw Chao Feng, they couldn't help but cup their hands in greeting. "Third Master." With that, the head of the Nine Li looked at the collapsed buildings and chuckled. "Ocean Emperor, may I ask what this building? Is that any of your business?" Shui Yang's tone was unfriendly. "What does this have to do with you? Do I need to report to you?" "Ha!" The head of the Nine Li laughed awkwardly, but said nothing. "Shui Yang, since you have a guest, we won't disturb you any longer. My nephew just returned from the Bai family estate. He hasn't fully recovered from his injuries, and just now, he suffered such a fright, so I'm taking him back to rest." At that moment, Xianji walked out of the crowd with Yi Zichen, whose left eye was bandaged. The divine arbiter's gaze instantly sharpened. Before coming here, the God Emperor had repeatedly warned her that there was a high chance Yi Zichen was the Emperor's star, and that she had to pay close attention to him. As soon as Xianji and Yi Zichen appeared, she focused on Yi Zichen's condition, as well as the other great emperor's expressions. If Yi Zichen really was the Emperor's star, then the great emperors would undoubtedly know. Their attitudes toward him would change dramatically. To her astonishment, she discovered that none of the great emperors even glanced at Yi Zichen. They didn't seem to care much about him. Then why had they gone to spirit cities by family and annihilated them for Yi Zichen's sake? "All right." Shui Yang nodded. "Wait a moment." At that moment, Beihan Shi, the head of the demon's frigid North clan, spoke up. They still couldn't determine who the Emperor's star's master was, so no one could leave early. The more anxious they were to leave, the more likely it was the Emperor's star. Furthermore, Yi Zichen's eye was bandaged. "Beihan Shi, what do you think you're doing?" snorted Xianji. "Nothing. Pavilion Master Xianji, please calm down. It's just that this youth looks a bit unfamiliar. I wonder if I could introduce him. This is my nephew. Is there a problem?" "Nephew, Pavilion Master Xianji has relatives?" Beihan Shi narrowed his eyes. His suspicion that Yi Zichen was the master of the stars intensified. "My son, is there a problem?" Yi Rong, the Lord of the Big Dipper, suddenly stepped forward. She'd expended an enormous amount of starlight and was still weak. When they saw that it was the Lord of the Big Dipper, the other experts were stunned. Everyone in the God realm knew that Yi Zichen was Yi Rong's son and Xianji's nephew, but not everyone in the Yao and Demon realms knew. "So you're Star Lord Ye's son?" Beihan Shi laughed. "Your son's eyes. I told you he had an eye disease. How many times do I have to explain it to you? You should know this, right? How exactly did my nephew's eyes get this disease?" asked Xianji. "Before coming here, His Excellency the God Emperor specifically instructed me to take a look at young Master Ye's injuries. Could the two of you please do me a favor and let me go back so I can explain my mission?" laughed the Divine Arbiter. "Huh? Why should I?" said Xianji. "If the God Emperor is concerned, just let the Divine Arbiter take a look," said someone. "You can't just look at my son's injuries just because you want to. Xianji, let's go. I'd like to see who dares stand in our way." Yi Rong's tone was unyielding, and she snorted angrily as she glared at the other experts. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei stood by her side. For a moment, Yi Zichen had 4 emperor-level experts tending to him. The remaining experts couldn't help but frown. It seemed Yi Zichen was most likely the master of the stars, but they couldn't be sure. They couldn't just let Xian Ji and the others leave like this. If they left now, it'd be even more difficult to confirm later. The 4 emperor-level auras locked onto the surrounding experts, but at that moment. Chapter 1465. The Divine Arbiter had already ripped off the bandage covering Yi Zichen's left eye. The rags fell to the ground, revealing his hideously scarred left eye. Yi Zichen instinctively covered his left eye. Although it was only for a moment, everyone could see that there was nothing special about it. Then they looked at the other great emperors. Although they'd frowned when the Divine Arbiter attacked, they didn't seem nervous at all. However, their frowns didn't contain any nervousness. They simply thought the Divine Arbiter's actions were a little excessive. Could it be that it wasn't him? The other experts couldn't help but frown. The Divine Arbiter froze for a moment, her brows furrowed in astonishment. "Divine Arbiter!" roared the Lord of 7 Stars. Xianji, Pu Jingwan, and Xiao Yumei stared intently at her. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "I'm doing this so I can properly report back to the God Emperor. It seems your injuries are severe, so here's the medicine the God Emperor gave me before sending me here. I hope it'll be of use." As she spoke, the Divine Arbiter tossed a jade bottle at Yi Rong. The bottle was smashed into pieces by Yi Rong in midair, and the valuable elixir inside also turned into powder that evaporated into the air. "I, Yi Rong, will remember your actions." A thin veil appeared in Xiao Yumei's hands and landed on Yi Zichen's left eye. Yi Rong and Xian Ji glared at the Divine Arbiter, then hugged Yi Zichen and left. This time, no one tried to stop Yi Zichen. Whether it was because his left eye wasn't the celestial eye or because he was acting like a great emperor, he didn't seem like the master of the stars. In that case, had the Master of the Stars already been safely relocated? Or was he hiding among these youths? In truth, there was one youth that caught the attention of the god, Yao, and demon experts. They could vaguely sense the auras of several great emperors hovering around him. Their gazes locked onto him. Sensing the change in the auras of the experts of the god, Yao, and demon races, the young man who was chatting with the other handsome men and beautiful women paused. The other great emperors instantly moved in front of the young man. "May I ask who that youth is?" asked someone. "He's a direct descendant of the Shui family, but he's just an ordinary cultivator." "I don't know why he's worth all of your attention," said Shui Yang, frowning. "Just an ordinary direct descendant? If that's the case, why are the other great emperors so flustered?" As he spoke, the auras of the divine, and demon clans suddenly rose. The great emperors froze. The gods, Yao, and demons looked on with even greater suspicion. Shui Yang's gaze grew cold. "Before coming here, I warned you that my daughter is suffering from a serious illness." With a wave of his hand, he set up a seal around Shui Mo's room. Shui Yang and the other great emperors' auras surged. Their oppressive might enveloped the god, Yao, and demon clansmen. "Scram before this emperor really gets angry. The Shui family doesn't entertain you." They were very close to the sea, and Shui Yang's Neptune's trident was still undefeatable. He alone was enough to make the experts of the god, Yao, and demon races struggle to defend themselves. Now there were several great emperors present. No matter what, they would not be able to take another step forward. However, even if they couldn't confirm it themselves, their guesses weren't far off. It seemed the Lord of the Emperor's Star was that youth. They never would have guessed that the Lord of the Stars was from the Shui family. No wonder the other divine mountains treated the Sea of Innocence as their masters. Ocean Emperor, let's go. The experts of the god, Yao, and demon races all left, leaving only the Divine Arbiter behind. Shui Yang's expression darkened. "You're not leaving? Are you waiting for me to send you off?" "His Excellency the God Emperor." "There's no need. Go back and tell Zhou Wu to stop coming to the Sea of Innocence. If we can still be sworn brothers, then so be it. If we can't, then I don't care if we fall out. Hurry up and get the hell out of here." Shui Yang pointed at the sea and roared. The Divine Arbiter's lips quivered, but she still took out a bottle of pills and placed it on the table. "No matter what you say, Ocean Emperor, I must complete the mission the God Emperor gave me. I'll leave the pills here. If you don't want me to stay, then I won't bother you any longer. Farewell." She tapped her foot against the ground and disappeared into the void. Shui Yang shattered the Divine Arbiter's pills with his halberd. His eyes blazed with fury. Afterward, the great emperors surrounded the youth they'd just noticed. They asked about his well-being, then ordered their clansmen to take him away. "Is it really him?" The Divine Arbiter didn't leave right away. Instead, she lingered in the spatial tunnel she'd created. After she left, the great emperor's reactions made it clear that if the youth was just an ordinary member of the Shui family, they'd been overly concerned about him. Even so, you had to be able to think in reverse. Weren't they just putting on a show for others? However, the Divine Arbiter didn't think too much about it. She lingered for another hour, but when she saw that Shui Yang and the others hadn't gone to see Yi Zichen, she left. As for who exactly was the Lord of the Stars, that was up to Zhou Wu to decide. Deep into the night. It wasn't until the wee hours of the morning that someone knocked on Yi Zichen's door. After opening the door, the few great emperors who stayed in the Shui family rushed over. Their gazes were more solemn than ever. "Is the Lord of the Stars all right?" asked Zhao Qianhe. The Divine Arbiter's sudden attack shocked us all. "It's nothing." Fortunately, the Fox Empress used her fox perception technique to protect Yi Zichen's left eye. Yi Rong gently stroked Yi Zichen's sleeping form, then looked into his left eye, which still glowed with starlight. Otherwise, the Divine Arbiter really would have noticed. "It's all thanks to Xianji's divine foresight that this might happen," said Su Qinyan with a smile. "Don't relax too much," said Xianji. "Even if it looks like we've tricked them, you should be able to sense it." "Zhou Wu is already on guard against Yi Zichen," said Xianji. The others nodded. From the Divine Arbiter's actions, it was clear that the God Emperor was wary of Yi Zichen. They just didn't know if their act together could fool the Divine Arbiter and the God Emperor. The God Emperor is naturally paranoid. If the Divine Arbiter goes back and tells him the truth, he'll definitely be suspicious of Yi Zichen and Shui Tai, said Shui Yang. So long as he's suspicious, the Lord of the Stars will be safe. That's why that child who replaced Yi Zichen as the Lord of the Stars can never appear again, said Xianji. Chapter 1466. It had to be said that the God race had been in troubled times recently. A few days ago, the Bai family of Spirit City had been exterminated, and the entire city had been destroyed. Not long after, someone else from the Sea of Innocence opened the Emperor's celestial eye. While the forces of the God race were restless, the Yao race and the Devil race also began to move. Because of this series of events, Zhou Wu was unable to immerse himself in comprehending the Tao in peace. He rarely had the time to keep watch in Heavenly God City's God Emperor Manor. Heavenly God City Center, God Emperor Residence. Zhou Wu sat in front of the bonfire with an ancient book in his hand. Regardless of whether the wind blew or not, the bonfire in front of him maintained the same flame, providing him with the stable light he needed to read the ancient book. Before the Divine Arbiter left, he had sent someone to retrieve this ancient tome from the library pavilion. By now, he'd already read half of it. Suddenly, he closed the tome and looked at the space in front of the bonfire. The surrounding space began to distort, and ripples spread outward. At the same time, the Divine Arbiter stepped out of the void. When the Divine Arbiter saw that the God Emperor was quietly waiting, she was shocked. "My lord!" Waving gently at her, Zhou Wu got up from the armchair. All his bones cracked as he stretched. It was obvious that he hadn't left the armchair for the entire day. "Thank you for your hard work." Hearing this, the Divine Arbiter lowered her head and let her hands fall to her side. Your subordinate has kept you waiting. Please punish me, Lord God Emperor. Her tone was especially sincere. The God Emperor smiled faintly, walked up to the Divine Arbiter, and lifted her chin with his right hand. How many times have I told you that we are no longer superior and subordinate when dealing with you in private? Why don't you remember? Yes, your subordinate, Zhou Wu raised his brows slightly. The Divine Arbiter swallowed her words and corrected herself. I understand. Only now did Zhou Wu smile. He gently caressed the Divine Arbiter's pretty face. Zhou Wu's caress made the Divine Arbiter blush. In truth, the Divine Arbiter was a rare beauty. She could even rival the foxes in beauty. It was just that she always wore a strict robe and didn't smile much when dealing with people, which made people feel that she was very rigid. Why don't you go rest for a bit? Said the God Emperor with a gentle smile. You must be tired after going back and forth from the Sea of Innocence. I'm willing to go through so much trouble for you. How could I be tired of talking? The Divine Arbiter's gaze was as soft as water, and her expression was gentle. I've already investigated the matter you asked me to investigate. It really is that Yi Zichen, right? Zhou Wu asked. The Divine Arbiter shook her head. Zhou Wu furrowed his brows. Before the Divine Arbiter had left, he'd already guessed most of it. Shui Yang and the others cared about him so much, and it was only after he left for the Sea of Innocence that the Emperor's star suddenly opened its eyes. When he thought about everything that had happened between him and Yi Zichen, it wasn't him. This left Zhou Wu in disbelief. However, he also wanted to hear what the Divine Arbiter had to say. What did you see in the Sea of Innocence? Tell me in detail. Zhou Wu pointed at the chairs by the bonfire and sat down on one of them. The Divine Arbiter nodded, sat down in a chair across from him, and told him everything she had seen in the Shui family. Although she spoke in detail, it took her less than 100 breaths of time to explain everything. Zhou Wu's brows furrowed deeply. He rested his right hand on his thigh and tapped it gently. According to what you're saying, the youth you called Xuetai after your investigation is more likely to be the Emperor's star than Yi Zichen. That's right. The great emperors of the Shui family all care about Xuetai. From the moment we arrived at the Shui family estate, they've been watching out for him, whether intentionally or not. They seem to care about Yi Zichen, but if you think about it more deeply, it's only out of respect for Xianji and Yi Rong. Xuetai, on the other hand, crossed that line, said the Divine Arbiter solemnly. Zhou Wu said nothing. He rested his chin on his left hand and tapped his thigh with his right. Have you investigated Xuetai thoroughly? He's the son of Shui Yang's third brother, Xuening. Based on his experiences, he can be considered a proud son of heaven. He was born less than 100 years ago, but he's already reached the divine general realm. However, the Shui family has hidden him well. If we hadn't gone there, we wouldn't have known that aside from the 3 princesses, the Shui family had another monster like him. Said the Divine Arbiter. No wonder the other divine mountains view the Sea of Innocence as their leader. Disregarding everything else, Baiyan isn't the type to submit to others. Could it be that they knew Xuetai was the master of the stars? Zhou Wu muttered to himself. The Divine Arbiter knew now wasn't the time to talk, so she obediently refrained from interrupting. Just like that, Zhou Wu muttered to himself for a full hour. When the wind outside grew cold, he narrowed his eyes and suddenly spoke. Earlier, you said Zhao Qianling took the initiative to invite you to the Shui family estate. Don't you think that was part of their plan? I did, so after leaving, I stayed at the Shui family estate for a while. However, I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary. The great emperors were all concerned about Xuetai's well-being, but Yi Zichen was cold and distant. No one paid him a visit. The Divine Arbiter's expression was solemn as she continued. The way I see it, the chances of Xuetai being the master of the stars are much higher than Yi Zichen's. I know what you're worried about, but based on what I saw, Zhao Qianling really was worried that Shui Yang would harm those people. The consequences would be unimaginable. Secondly, they might be trying to use reverse logic. They think we'll think they're tricking us, but in truth, they're using Yi Zichen to confuse us. In the face of the Divine Arbiter's lengthy explanation, Zhou Wu carefully analyzed the deeper meaning behind her words. After a long silence, he nodded. That's reasonable. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think it as deeply as you do. Don't take everything I say for granted. Shui Tai and Yi Zichen are both the master of the stars. As for who exactly it is, we'll have to wait and see, said the Divine Arbiter with a smile. That's only natural, but the chances of it being Shui Tai are higher. In a while. No, wait until tomorrow morning. After you've rested, send people to the Shui family estate to keep a close eye on Shui Tai, said Zhou Wu. Then Yi Zichen? Zhou Wu thought for a moment, then said, keep an eye on him as well, but don't pay too much attention to him. You were right about one thing. Shui Yang and the others might be using Yi Zichen to confuse us and hide the true master of the stars. At most, Yi Zichen was just an auxiliary star. So long as he controlled the Emperor star, he'd be able to control it. He won't be able to cause any big wave. Chapter 1467. Stars filled the sky. Yi Zichen, who'd opened his celestial eye, drifted leisurely through the river of stars. In the Milky Way, he was like an emperor overlooking the world, inspecting his people and enjoying their reverence for him. It was a very pleasant feeling, but the din of notifications disturbed him. Seriously. He flipped over and found his phone by his pillow. He swiped down and saw countless messages. More and more popped up on his screen. Erling Shin, how's Yizi doing? Erling Shin, it's still early in the morning and you're still sleeping. Don't sleep anymore. I went out for a walk. Erling Shin, you don't say. Heavenly God City is really lively this morning. Erling Shin, don't play dead. Come out for a chat. Howling Celestial Dog, say hello to everyone. Howling Celestial Dog, woof woof woof. Monkey King, shut up. Erling Shin, hey, you're awake. When I came out, there was no sound from your room. Hurry up, I'm in the western part of the city. There's a sideshow over here. Hurry up and take a look. Below the messages were Yang Jian's coordinate. Monkey King, scram. You forgot why we came back. We're not the kind of people who can hang out together in the morning. Erling Shin, hey, I have a bad memory. Invincible, adorable beauty. Heavenly God City has sideshows? Erling Shin, what do you think? It's pretty good. I'll send you something good later. Ding. A red packet appeared on the screen. Yi Zichen yawned and tapped it. A designated red packet. There's a new function? Yi Zichen arched his brows when he saw the designated Invincible Adorable Beauties message. It seemed the development team he'd poached from the Heavenly Court and Underworld hadn't been idle. Invincible Adorable Beauty. Is there something wrong with your head? Haven't you played with a lousy rattledrum before? Ultimate Charmer. Shu Zichen's resting. Can you guys shut up? Xiao Yumei also popped out of the group. When Yi Zichen saw her message, his heart warmed. Yumei was still the best to him. Erling Shin, how's Yi Zi? Yesterday you suddenly disappeared. The monkey and I were scared out of our wit. Did you see it? Yesterday, a beam of light appeared above my head. Invincible Adorable Beauty. That's Starlight Country Bumpkin. Ultimate Charmer. Zichen's celestial eye has already opened, but activating it takes a lot out of him, so he went to bed early. I don't know if he's awake or not. Only idealism. Hello. Yi Zichen looked at the message on the screen and typed out 2 words. Erling Shin, Yizi, you're awake. The monkey and I are in Heavenly God City. The Upheaval Alliance is fine, and the Profound Pavilion is doing fine, too. That brat Zhou Wu didn't dare attack us, but that brat. Do you think he's up to something? Monkey King, good morning, Yizi. Yi Zichen naturally knew that the Upheaval Alliance and Profound Pavilion were coexisting peacefully. Otherwise, Wei Jie would have contacted him. As for why Zhou Wu didn't move, It was obvious if one thought about it carefully. Just as Yi Zichen was about to reply, the door was pushed open. Xiao Yumei, who was in her pajamas, ran in with one shoe. When she saw Yi Zichen's message, she didn't think of anything else, she only wanted to get to Yi Zichen's side. However, as soon as they entered, both she and Yi Zichen froze. Zichen, you. Yumei, you. Yi Zichen and Xiao Yumei pointed at each other, then looked at each other when they saw each other's gestures. What's wrong with me? They asked in unison. Your eye. Your body. They spoke at the same time. In Xiao Yumei's eyes, Yi Zichen's left eye shone like a star, and starlight flowed from it. As for Xiao Yumei, she was completely enveloped in starlight. This was something Yi Zichen had never seen before. Wait for me. I'm going to find Auntie Yi. Meanwhile, in Yi Zichen's room, Xiao Yumei's actions had attracted the great emperors of the Shui family. The hermit emperor sat in front of Yi Zichen and helped him put on a black mask. Yi Zichen had designed the mask himself, and it was almost identical to Hitaki Kakashi's. Are you okay now? After putting on the mask, the hermit emperor smiled at Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen nodded. After covering his left eye, he really couldn't see the starlight flowing around Xiao Yumei. Your left eye is the Emperor Star's celestial eye. You can see the light of all 88 stars. What you saw just now was the fated star's starlight and celestial fate. I see. Yi Zichen nodded in understanding. Zichen's left eye is overflowing with starlight. What should we do? Do we have to keep wearing that mask? Asked Yi Rong. It's nothing. I've only just opened my celestial eye, so I can't use starlight properly yet. After a while, it won't overflow anymore. The hermit emperor waved his hand dismissively. When the great emperors heard that, they sighed in relief. The Emperor Star's starlight was extremely important. If it kept leaking, it wouldn't be a good thing. Right? How is Shuemo? Yi Zichen furrowed his brows. Suddenly, the great emperor's gazes darkened. When he saw their expressions, Yi Zichen couldn't help but grow solemn. You couldn't save her? Yi Zichen knew that the Emperor Star's starlight had entered Shuemo's body. The hermit emperor had said that so long as there was enough starlight, Shuemo would wake up. It's not that I couldn't save her. Amidst the great emperor's silence, the hermit emperor sighed. The Emperor Star's starlight really did stabilize her condition, but it's much more troublesome than I thought. The starlight stabilized her life, but she hasn't woken up yet. While Yi Zichen was sleeping, the great emperors had gone to Shuemo's room to check on her. The Emperor Star's starlight had entered Shuemo's body, and its power had indeed weakened her bloodline's backlash. However, at the same time, the backlash reared its head. As a result, Shuemo showed no signs of waking up. Zhao Qianling's eyes were red and swollen. She'd been crying all night. What do you mean? Isn't there enough starlight? If not, I can give her more. Yi Zichen furrowed his brows. Zichen, don't mess around, shouted Yi Rong. Giving Shuemo a bit of starlight when she'd opened her eye was already the limit of what she could accept. If she gave her more, in the end, would she be the master of the stars, or Yi Zichen? Yi Zichen licked his lips in response. The hermit emperor spoke up. She already has enough starlight. Even if you give her more, she won't make much progress. Is there no other way? Asked Yi Zichen. Of course there is. As he spoke, the hermit emperor glanced at Yi Rong, then said, I'm just worried that the Lord of 7 Stars won't agree. Then don't say it, said Yi Rong resolutely. Chapter 1468. It wasn't just Yi Rong. Even the other great emperors were shocked by the hermit emperor's words. When it came to healing Shuemo, this old senior, who hadn't left the mountain for nearly 10,000 years, would always say something shocking and shocking. For example, the Emperor Starlight from before, and now the Emperor Astral Fate. Hermit Emperor, your words. Even Shui Yang couldn't help but speak up. The Hermit Emperor's words were simply too shocking. Being able to obtain a bit of Emperor Starlight was already a blessing. Now, he wanted the Emperor's celestial fate. What was he trying to do? Were they going to make Shui Mo the new leader of the Emperor's Star? The other great emperors, such as Su Qinyan of the Fox clan and Bian of the Four Directions Palace, furrowed their brows. Among these people, there were already some whose auras gradually turned cold. The temperature in the room plummeted. The great emperors looked over. It was the Lord of Big Dipper, Yi Rong. You've successfully gotten my attention with your words. Yi Rong's eyelids drooped. She no longer had any respect for the Hermit Emperor. Instead, she looked indifferently at this venerable senior of the god race. Her eyes shone with a faint light of contempt. The atmosphere was unusually heavy. The few great emperors didn't speak because they knew that it wasn't time for them to speak yet. Despite being ignored, the Hermit Emperor's face was brimming with a warm smile. It's my honor. I still want to warn you, don't go too far. The Lord of Big Dipper's smile seemed to be both a consolation and a threat. You clearly know that I won't agree, but you still said it. What do you mean? The Star Lord asked this old man to speak, so how could this old man not speak? The Hermit Emperor laughed. This explanation is passable. Yi Rong nodded gently. But if you truly respected the Emperor's Star, you wouldn't have said what you just said. The decision is in the Star Lord's hands, so why can't I say what I said? The Hermit Emperor chuckled and stroked his beard. I'd like to comfort you, Lord of Big Dipper. At the end of the day, you are the Lord of Big Dipper, and he is the Emperor's Star. Even though you are his mother, you still have to put your position and attitude in order. It's not something you should meddle in. Anyone would think that Yi Rong would fly into a rage if she said such offensive words again. What no one expected was that she, who had a cold expression on her face, slowly retracted her aura. She pursed her lips and did not argue. Hermit Emperor, you. She was about to speak when Yi Rong grabbed her and shook her head at her. She couldn't deny that the Hermit Emperor's words had awakened Yi Rong. Yi Zichen was her child, but he was also the Emperor's Star. She'd always treated Yi Zichen as her own child. As a mother, she'd wholeheartedly thought about him, but she'd neglected the fact that he was the leader of the stars, the Emperor's Star. No one had the right to interfere with the Emperor's Star's decisions. All the stars should do was support the Emperor's Star's decisions. The Emperor's Star received orders from the heavens. Everything he did would naturally be guided by the unseen. Forcefully interfering would only cause the problem to deviate and lead to unmanageable consequences. Many thanks for your guidance, Hermit Emperor. Yi Rong cupped her hands. Xianji was far too familiar with Yi Rong's personality. She was somewhat stunned to see her submit to the Hermit Emperor on this matter. She knew all too well that so long as something bad happened to Yi Zichen, the Lord of the Big Dipper would do everything in her power to prevent it from happening. Now the Hermit Emperor wanted the Emperor's Star's celestial fate. It's not too late, said the Hermit Emperor with an enigmatic smile. Yi Rong nodded and took half a step back. The other great emperors watched in bewilderment. Although they didn't know what had happened that they couldn't see through, it seemed the Hermit Emperor had managed to convince the Lord of the Big Dipper. At the same time, the Hermit Emperor smiled at Yi Zichen. Star Lord Yi, what will your decision be? Of course Yi Zichen blurted out his answer without hesitation, but as he did so, he subconsciously glanced at Yi Rong. When he sensed his gaze, the Hermit Emperor smiled, but Yi Rong's heart trembled. Only now did she realize just how much influence she'd had on the Emperor's Star. Zichen, you are the Emperor's Star, the leader of the stars. You can do whatever you want. No one can change your mind. All you have to do is act according to your heart, said Yi Rong softly. Then, of course I'm willing. The Tao of Luck. It was a form of metaphysics in the modern realm, but it wasn't unfamiliar to cultivators. A person's overall luck directly affected their cultivation, their future accomplishments, and so on and so forth. As a result, there was always a saying among cultivators, who had heaven-defying luck, and who had mediocre luck. However, to cultivators proficient in metaphysics, the concept of celestial fate was relatively unfamiliar. For example, the great emperors standing in Shui Mo's room watched as the hermit emperor guided Yi Zichen to take Shui Mo's arm and close his eyes. They didn't know how he was going to deliver the Emperor Star's celestial fate to Shui Mo. In short, for 6 full hours, no one spoke. "It's done," Su Qinyan suddenly muttered, her eyes flashing with astonishment. The other great emperors who hadn't yet descended glanced at her, then noticed that Yi Zichen had suddenly opened his eyes. He let go of Shui Mo's hand and stared intently at her. The instant he let go, Shui Mo's eyelids fluttered, then her fingers, until "Yi Zichen!" Little Mo, the Zhao sisters rushed up to him. Shui Mo, who just opened her eyes, was shocked. "Mom, why are you here?" The other emperors gathered around the bed as well. Shui Mo opened her eyes and stared blankly at the people in the room. Then, she looked at the room again and, "This is the Sea of Innocence?" She wanted to rise to her feet and bow to the great emperors, but the pain in her body made it difficult for her to even sit up. A pained expression surfaced on her face. Zhao Qianling's eyes brimmed with sorrow, and she covered her face and secretly wiped away her tears. "Mom, why are you crying?" Shui Mo's voice was hoarse, completely different from her usual crisp voice. She smiled at Zhao Qianling, then looked back at Yi Zichen. "How embarrassing! It seems I was injured and sent back to the Sea of Innocence. I didn't expect you to come too. I wanted to get that sword and give it to you. Ever since you joined Anti-Upheaval, I've never given you anything. How embarrassing!" Shui Mo's face was flushed with embarrassment. She truly felt humiliated. She'd clearly wanted to snatch the sword, but she'd ended up heavily injured, and Yi Zichen had seen it all. When she saw Yi Zichen, all she could think about was how embarrassing it was. As for her injuries, she didn't mention a single word. Even though the pain in her body made her face pale, she could only endure it silently. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she noticed Yi Zichen's unconcealed eye wound, as well as his empty left arm. "You go to sleep." He gently tousled her hair. For some reason, Yi Zichen's words seemed to contain some mysterious magic. As soon as he finished speaking, Shui Mo's eyes brimmed with shock, and her consciousness gradually blurred. She'd only just opened her eyes, but before she could say more than a few words, she fell back into a deep sleep. No one was surprised at all, because the Hermit Emperor had already explained everything clearly. Zhao Qianling's eyes were filled with reluctance, but in the end all she could do was gently kiss Shui Mo's cheek. Chapter 1469. Shui Mo's awakening was short-lived. Yi Zichen's words hadn't caused her to fall asleep, but rather, he'd severed the link between her and the Emperor Star's celestial fate. He'd given her celestial fate only to confirm that it could awaken her. In that instant, he realized that celestial fate really could wake Shui Mo from her slumber. So long as he was willing to maintain this connection, she'd be able to live like a normal person. But he wouldn't do that, and the other great emperors wouldn't let him. "What should I do to wake Shui Mo up?" Yi Zichen said solemnly. "Based on what happened just now, it seems the celestial fate can awaken her, but in the end, she's not the Emperor Star's master. There's no way to keep the celestial fate I sent into her body. I have to keep her awake. Someone who isn't the Emperor Star's master naturally can't retain celestial fate, but there's someone in this world who doesn't have the Emperor Star, but who does? Who was he talking about? Everyone present knew this very well. Zhou Wu. In his era, the heavens hadn't chosen 2 emperors. Back then, the master of the Emperor Star should have been the 5 elements' great emperor. Never mind the Emperor's star, Zhou Wu wasn't even an auxiliary star. Yet he'd usurped the 5 elements' celestial fate and become the current god emperor. The others might not know the truth, but Yi Zichen did. Zhou Wu had obtained the 5 elements' great emperor's celestial fate because he'd traded his heart for it in the time corridor. For the Hermit Emperor to suddenly say something like that, did he know the time corridor's secret? Was he looking for a way to enter the time corridor? Of course, Zhou Wu is an anomaly. The fact that he obtained celestial fate can only mean that his luck is good. His method is something that can only be discovered by chance, not sought, said the Hermit Emperor. Hermit Emperor, what are you talking about? Can you not be so mystified? Zhao Qianling frowned. The others were confused as well. Only a few knew what the Hermit Emperor was talking about. Yi Zichen was one of them. Based on the Hermit Emperor's words, he knew Zhou Wu had visited the time corridor. But it didn't seem like he was looking for a way to enter the time corridor. There's something that can seal the Emperor Star's celestial fate within her body, said the Hermit Emperor. What is it? I'll order someone to find him right away, said Shuiyang. As the Sea Emperor of the Sea of Innocence, Shuiyang was also in charge of the entire northern Divine Mountain. Given his manpower, wealth, and resources, it wasn't an exaggeration to say such things. He wasn't the only one standing here. Zhao Qianling of the Jade Pool, Bian of the Four Directions Palace, and Great Emperor Chao Feng of the Society of Sages were also present. If all of them were to search for the same thing at the same time, they would be able to find it in less than half a day. Shui Yang's expression was solemn. The Hermit Emperor shook his head and smiled. Neither you nor I can go to a place with this item. Only Star Lord Yi can find it himself. His words caused the great emperors to knit their brows. They obviously had far more places to go than Yi Zichen. Yi Zichen could go, but they couldn't. Xianji seemed to suddenly think of something and arched her brows. Yi Rong glanced at her and before long, her brows furrowed as well. At that moment Yi Zichen looked straight into the Hermit Emperor's eyes. What is it? Where is it? I'll go. You're back. Ever since Yi Zichen and the others arrived at Shui Mo's place, Xiao Yumei had been waiting outside the room. Pu Jingwan sat on a tree trunk and tossed grapes into her mouth. When she saw Yi Zichen, she pushed the fruit platter into the air, jumped down, and landed by his side. Yi Zichen nodded indifferently. From his expression, it was clear that he had a lot on his mind. When she saw this, Xiao Yumei quietly followed him. Yi Zichen sat by the bed in silence for a long while. Not even in his wildest dreams would he have guessed that the item the Hermit Emperor spoke of would be there. He had to go to that place in the first place, but Shui Mo's situation made it so that he had no choice but to go. Is it a coincidence? Yi Zichen sat by the bed, his gaze deep as he rubbed his fingers together. He didn't know when, but at some point, he'd once again felt like he was being led around by the nose. It was as if everything had been prearranged and he couldn't change anything. He thought he'd escaped Gu Zichen's control and that his fate was his own to decide. Could it be that Gu Zichen was behind this? That shouldn't be the case. Yi Zichen rejected the thought as soon as it occurred to him. Gu Zichen understood Yi Zichen's personality. Gu Zichen wouldn't be so shameless as to force him into submission. This really isn't a good feeling. Yi Zichen rubbed his fingers together. When he came to his senses, he noticed that Xiao Yumei was standing guard by his side. I'm still here. Don't worry about me. I was just thinking about something, laughed Yi Zichen. I know you have a lot on your mind, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. Just let nature take its course. I don't like seeing you frown, said Xiao Yumei gently. I know. When facing Xiao Yumei, Yi Zichen always felt like he was shrouded in tenderness. She was very sensible. She didn't ask or think too much about anything. She was always gentle and virtuous, compared to the one by his side. I'm so jealous. Can't you two take my feelings into consideration? You're so lovey-dovey. Do you want to live? Pu Jingwan rolled her eyes. The atmosphere in the room was instantly ruined. No one's going to take you for a mute if you talk a little less. Yi Zichen rolled his eyes, then took out his phone. Yang Jian and the Great Sage have been talking a lot in the chat group, haven't they? What are you talking about? After you left without saying goodbye, the chat group was flooded by the two of them. To tell the truth, those two brothers really care about you. I never would have guessed that with your character, you'd have friends like that. They're so loyal and devoted, Tsk. Pu Jingwan couldn't help but shake her head. What do you mean by my character? I don't like what you're saying. Do I have any problems with my character? Yi Zichen was speechless. Philandering, fickle, harem. In short, you're not a good person, said Pu Jingwan, tilting her head. Yi Zichen was speechless. He scratched his head and clicked open the chat group in the app. It was just as Pu Jingwan had said. There were only 5 people in the group, but there were over 999 messages. Most of the messages were from Yang Jian and the Great Sage. Along the way, Yi Zichen saw Pu Jingwan joking around and Xiao Yumei comforting him. Yi Zichen scrolled through the messages, then sent a message of his own. Only idealism, no need to worry. We'll meet soon. Erlang Shin, the Monkey King. Chapter 1470. As the capital of the God race, Heavenly God City wasn't exactly peaceful these past few days. Above the void, the energy ripples produced by the collision of the tyrannical divine powers almost affected the entire city. The people in the city complained to the city defense countless times, but they still couldn't stop the situation from happening. The people in the city were in a constant state of anxiety. Fortunately, the battle in the void did not affect them. Quite a few family clans had investigated, and learned that these were 2 almighty experts from the Upheaval Alliance. Their private conflict had escalated to a boiling point, and there was no point in trying to mediate within the alliance. The only solution was for the 2 of them to fight. Boom! It was as if a comet had fallen from the sky. The peddlers in the city who weren't members of the Upheaval Alliance shook their heads and sighed. They silently tidied up the debris on the street. They all knew very well that as long as this explosion happened, they would no longer be able to do business. It started again. The other powers and guards in the city couldn't help whispering. This kind of situation wasn't strange to the people of Heavenly God City. Although the time wasn't fixed, this kind of situation would occur several times a day. In particular, no one could interfere with the battle between the 2 of them. Even the city guards would find it hard to defend against their heaven-defying methods. The only ones who could stand up to them were those in the upper echelons of the underworld. However, those people were all important figures who would not easily make a move, and the only ones who could order them around were. There was a God Emperor. It was impossible for the God Emperor to be unaware of such an intense collision. However, he chose to ignore it and did not send any Almighty to stop it. As a result, the battle between the Upheaval Alliance's 2 almighty experts could only end when they'd had enough of each other. I really hope the leader of the Upheaval Alliance returns to Heavenly God City as soon as possible. Countless people had the same thought. Over the past few days, Yang Jian and the Great Sage had been on the verge of fighting over the slightest disagreement. This had directly affected the interests of too many people in the city. Even the Upheaval Alliance's inner circle came to the same conclusion. No one in the alliance could control the 2 of them. The only person who could control them was their alliance master, but the alliance master was not in the city recently. Unbeknownst to them, the Upheaval Alliance was currently in a state of turmoil because of these 2 bosses. What's going on? Why are they fighting again? Wei Jie stood within the Upheaval Alliance and narrowed his eyes at the sky. He'd already sent the other sovereigns into the city. Although Yang Jian and the Great Sage's fight wouldn't harm the innocent, the shock waves from a clash between 2 Emperor-class sovereigns weren't something anyone below the diviner level could withstand. These sovereigns had been sent out to prevent the 2 of them from fighting and injuring others. That way, the citizens of the city wouldn't explode into a boiling cauldron of resentment. It was also to reduce the Upheaval Alliance's financial expenses. He had to compensate for injuring someone or damaging something. When they came back a few days ago, I felt that there was something wrong with the 2 of them. Both openly and secretly, they seemed to be fighting to the death. First they went to the Bai family, then they went to the Sea of Innocence. What exactly happened in between? The former Lightning Emperor, Xiao Yan, stood next to Wei Jie, a deep frown on his face. Over the past few days, as well as Xiao Yumei's advice, Xiao Yan had completely accepted this place. Although the fact that the alliance head was Yi Zichen made him feel embarrassed, he'd once been a great enemy of the Xiao family. In truth, Xiao Yan's situation was a bit better. In terms of awkwardness, Xiao Hu was in the worst position. Half a year ago, he'd fought Yi Zichen, but now he had no choice but to bow down to Yi Zichen. Xiao Hu, Xiao Yan, can either of you go up and talk some sense into them? Asked Wei Jie. Suddenly, Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu's expressions froze. "Oh Wei, you really think too highly of us, uncle and nephew. Never mind the fact that I've only just become a ruler, even little Yan might not necessarily be a match for either of them. Right now they're both furious. Whoever goes up will only end up getting beaten up." Xiao Hu, who'd once struck terror into the hearts of Yao, was now speaking in such a dejected tone. The former Lightning Emperor, Xiao Yan, nodded silently. Amongst the gods, Yao, and demon realms, rulers like them were naturally as rare as phoenix feathers or Qilin horns. However, even rulers had different levels of cultivation. If they wanted to deal with Yang Jian and the Great Sage, only a handful of rulers were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. But weren't those few rulers just squinting their eyes and pretending to be dead? Didn't you say Yi Zichen and my sister had already left the Sea of Innocence and returned to Heavenly God City? Why haven't they returned yet? Asked Xiao Yan. I did say they're back. Wei Jie nodded. When Yi Zichen left the Sea of Innocence, he'd contacted Wei Jie. Then ask them where they are now. Hurry up and tell them about their situation. If they don't come back soon, they'll tear the city apart, shouted Xiao Yan. That. Wei Jie was hesitant. At the end of the day, he was a subordinate. Even though the Alliance Master was amiable and approachable, he still had to know his limit. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't make sense for a subordinate to rush the Alliance head. However, at that moment there was a massive boom, and a sky full of illusory staffs fell from the sky. They smashed through the city's seals like they were tofu, then blasted a huge hole in the roof of an inn that had been around for thousands of years. When he saw this, Wei Jie didn't dare delay any longer. He took out his phone and sent a few messages to the person he called Alliance Head. I've got a message. Yi Zichen's phone rang. He'd long since arrived outside Heavenly God City, but hadn't yet entered the city. He smiled. He didn't need to take out his phone to know who it was. Someone who could use their phone to contact him at a time like this. It could only be Wei Jie. Yi Zichen opened Wei Jie's messages, and his screen was filled with anxious messages. Perhaps Wei Jie was worried that he didn't have enough information, but before long, a short video appeared in his chat box. He couldn't see Yang Jian or the Great Sage in the video, but he could hear a deafening boom. In truth, Yi Zichen didn't need to watch the video to know that even outside the city, they could hear it clearly. I've already set the stage for the foreplay. Yi Zichen silently put his phone back in his pocket, then stopped in the wilderness outside the city. His gaze focused. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei stood by his side. They watched as Yi Zichen took off his black robes. Yumei, take out what Beibei gave you before he left. Xiao Yumei nodded and took it out. It was wrapped in natural silk, and when she unwrapped it, they saw an arm made from 10,000-year-old lotus roots. Pu Jingwan took it, then rolled up Yi Zichen's left sleeve. Chapter 1471. The Upheaval Alliance is getting more and more out of hand. I know, right? I thought the Upheaval Alliance's presence would make Heavenly God City more stable. Who would have guessed things would turn out this way? Shoo, don't talk nonsense. I heard the Upheaval Alliance is connected to the Profound Pavilion. Everyone in the city heard the Upheaval Alliance's slander. Most of the people saying such things were victims whose interests had been infringed upon. They'd complained to the city's defenses, but hadn't received a resolution. All they could do was grumble in private. It seems Yang Jian's actions have affected the city's residents greatly, said Xiao Yumei through divine sense. Yi Zichen simply nodded in response. He didn't want things to turn out this way either, but a monarch-level conflict couldn't be played out so calmly. All he could do was deal with it, and the upheaval alliance would do its best to compensate them for their losses. After returning to the upheaval alliance's headquarters, Yi Zichen and the others headed straight for Wei Jie and the others. After returning to the upheaval alliance's headquarters, Yi Zichen and the others headed straight for Wei Jie and the others. Alliance head. Big sis. Big sis. Wei Jie and Xiao Yan turned around. When they saw Yi Zichen, Xiao Hu's expression was unsightly, but he still grit his teeth and nervously called out, "Alliance head." Yi Zichen glanced at Xiao Hu, then nodded. No matter what conflicts they'd had in the past, they were now comrades in the same trench. Besides, even if it was out of respect for Xiao Yumei, he wouldn't feel any animosity towards Xiao Hu. Although he didn't say anything, his nod was an acknowledgement of Xiao Hu's participation. Everyone present understood this. Xiao Hu had been in a high position for a long time, so there was no way he'd cry tears of gratitude. However, subconsciously, his attitude had changed. Xiao Yan, who'd been planning on putting in a good word for Xiao Hu, laughed. It seemed this brother-in-law of his was quite broad-minded. Explosions continued to ring out in the sky. The faces of Wei Jie and the others sank when they heard those explosions. I wasn't very clear on my cell phone earlier. What exactly is going on? Why did Yang Jian and the great sage start fighting? Aren't they pretty close? That. Wei Jie stammered, but said nothing. Just get to the point. Although they're my trusted aides, you're my trusted aide as well. Aside from their cultivation being slightly higher than yours, there's nothing else you can say. Just get to the point, said Yi Zichen. Actually, I'm not too sure what the conflict is. Wei Jie narrowed his eyes. Ever since the two of them returned, they've been quarreling with each other. They've also exchanged blows several times. However, this time, it seems like the two of them are truly enraged. They're fighting much more fiercely than before. You've fought before. Yi Zichen frowned. Wei Jie and the others nodded in silence. Xiao Yan spoke up as well. You know what realm they're at. None of us can do anything about it. I understand. I won't blame you for this, Yi Zichen nodded solemnly. Why did they start fighting? Could it be that Xiao Ting went looking for Yang Jian? Asked Xiao Yumei. Father? Xiao Yan arched his brows, but he quickly corrected himself. Xiao Ting went looking for Yang Jian. When did this happen? Is Yang Jian connected to him? That was a long time ago. As the alliance head, there was no need for Yi Zichen to explain the details to them right now. Xiao Yan and the others understood their own statuses very well, so they didn't ask any further questions. Yi Zichen looked up into the sky for a while, then panted heavily. You guys wait here. I'll go up and call them over. This is the God Realm's capital. We can't let them continue causing trouble like this. Should we go with you? Asked Xiao Yumei and Pu Jingwan in unison. No need. I'll go up myself. No matter how much trouble they cause, I'll go up and make peace in person. There's no way they won't give me face. I'm just worried that Yang Jian. Xiao Yan, watch your words. Yi Zichen's gaze instantly darkened. Xiao Yan also realized he'd misspoken. In terms of trust, he was from the Xiao family. Even though he was related to his sister, there was no way he could compare to Yang Jian and the great sage in terms of trust. He'd said those words out of goodwill. As a member of the Xiao family, he knew full well how Xiao Ting targeted Yi Zichen. He'd only said those words because he was worried that Yang Jian might betray them and secretly have an affair with Xiao Ting. However, he'd forgotten that he hadn't reached the point where he could confide in Yi Zichen yet. Yi Zichen nodded silently and retreated. Xiao Yumei couldn't help but speak up. My little brother is just worried about you. I know, but I trust that Yang Jian won't betray me. Yi Zichen's cold demeanor reached its pinnacle. His indifference left Xiao Yumei speechless. Then, she heard Yi Zichen say, You guys wait here. I'll go up and take a look. Boom. Yang Jian and the great sage's weapons clashed in the sky. Judging from their expressions, they really weren't holding back at all. Every blow was aimed at taking Yi Zichen's life. Boundless divine power filled the sky above Heavenly God's city with a dark mist. Monkey, you really are ruthless. Old Sun knows how to deal with treacherous scoundrels like you. The two imperial monarchs roared furiously in the sky. Just the sound waves alone were enough to heavily injure an Earth Supreme expert. What are you two doing? At that moment, Yi Zichen appeared between them. He glowered at them, his brows furrowed with fury. I told you to come back to protect the Upheaval Alliance, not to mess around. Alliance head. Yang Jian and the great sage simultaneously cupped their fists at Yi Zichen. Before long, the great sage snorted. Alliance head, please understand. Previously, he plotted with Shao Ting, the head of the Shao family. Back then, for your sake, I didn't bicker with him. However, he didn't use his full strength in the Bai family, and after returning to Heavenly God City, he secretly contacted the Shao family many times. I think he's a spy from the Upheaval Alliance. Bullshit! Roared Yang Jian, his face red. Do you dare say that last night you met with someone from the Shao family outside Heavenly God City? Said the great sage solemnly. When he heard that, Yi Zichen couldn't help but knit his brows. Yang Jian, are you telling the truth? Yang Jian's voice faltered. Yes, the Shao family came to me last night, but I rejected all of their offers. Yezi, I've always been with you. You should know best what kind of person I am. Yi Zichen focused his gaze in silence. Seeing this, Yang Jian couldn't help but roar angrily. You don't believe me! I didn't say that I don't believe you. But since you're following me, you should know the grudge between me and the Shao family. If you don't admit it, the Shao family has looked for you, and I will believe you. But just now It's said that when a person sits in a high position, their temperament will change. This time I really believe it. Yang Jian laughed out loud, causing the entire void to tremble. All the cultivators in Heavenly God City felt a chill down their spines. Enough about that. Come with me. I'll investigate whether or not you're in cahoots with the Shao family, said Yi Zichen. Investigate? Now you're talking about an investigation. If it was in the past, you would have trusted me unconditionally. But now you don't trust me? You trust this monkey who's only been with you for a short while? We were brothers back in the lower realms. Yi, you've truly disappointed me. Chapter 1472. Yang Jian's purple-green robe floated down from the sky. His resolute words echoed in the sky along with the robe. When he heard this, Yi Zichen's hands trembled violently. His eyes filled with disbelief as he stared at Yang Jian's resolute expression. Even though this was all a prearranged show, Yi Zichen was still somewhat moved. Are you serious? Since we don't trust each other, there's no point in being brothers. Yang Jian snorted coldly, his lance glinting with cold light. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. You go your own way and I'll go mine. I hope your future is bright, and that you'll accomplish great things. Let's part ways here. Suddenly, Yang Jian turned around and put away his three-pointed, double-edged sword. With his back to Yi Zichen and the great sage, he waved, then dashed off into the distance without so much as a backward glance. Stop right there. To Yang Jian's surprise, before he'd even taken a few steps, Yi Zichen's trembling hands steadied his expression. His eyes were undisguisable indifference. When Yang Jian heard this, he turned around and looked into Yi Zichen's icy eyes. Is there anything else you want to say? It seems our brotherhood isn't all that important to you, said Yi Zichen with a cold smile, then cracked his neck. You're heartless, so don't blame me for being heartless. You've been with me for so long. You know far too much top-secret information that I can't divulge to outsiders. Explain yourself, said Yang Jian. You took the initiative to cut ties with us, which resolves my hesitation. You and I are no longer brothers, so I no longer need to worry about our relationship. Yi Zichen's expression was as cold as ice, and his aura surged. Behind him, the great sage gripped his staff tightly. Boundless divine power wove a tight net around Yang Jian, trapping him within. Fierce winds howled in the sky, causing the clouds to churn. Thunder rumbled incessantly, and lightning flashed between the clouds. The howling winds caused Yang Jian, Yi Zichen, and the great sage's robes to flap wildly. They stood proudly at the center of the storm. Capture him! As soon as he finished speaking, the great sage swung the Jingu Bang in his hand. The Erlang lance that Yang Jian had just put away was once again summoned out. With a crisp clang, a raging storm rolled up the clouds and shook the entire void. The collision of divine power created an explosion that caused even a sovereign expert's heart to clench involuntarily. Why haven't they come down yet? Inside the Upheaval Alliance, Xiao Yumei and the others looked up at the sky, but the mist was too thick. Even with their eyesight, they couldn't see through it. At this moment, the loud noise in the sky caused the hearts of the people waiting below to tremble. Is it the Alliance leader and the others? Wei Jie exclaimed. Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei furrowed their brows. Before long, they glanced at each other, then leapt into the sky. Wait here, we'll go up and take a look. Up in the sky, Yang Jian's eyes grew sharp as he resisted the great sage's staff. He gnashed his teeth, his eyes flashing with resentment and disbelief as he stared at Yi Zichen. His expression was indescribably rich. Yi Zi, are you trying to get rid of me? Don't blame me, said Yi Zichen. You know too much. I can't just let you go, said Yi Zichen. I swear I won't tell anyone. Even if we're done with each other, I won't be so despicable as to expose your secrets to the world, said Yang Jian solemnly. I'm sorry, I don't trust you, and I can't afford to gamble. Yi Zichen smiled coldly at him, then turned to the great sage and roared, Great sage, capture him! Yi Zi! Yang Jian roared. Do it! Yi Zichen had completely immersed himself in this drama. His gaze didn't contain even the slightest hint of hesitation. Yang Jian truly understood what it meant to be discouraged. He nodded repeatedly, his lips trembling, but for a long time, he didn't say a single word. In the face of the great sage's thunderous attacks, he just dealt with them absent-mindedly. He'd taken who knew how many blows, but his gaze never left Yi Zichen's. He looked at Yi Zichen's single eye peeking out from beneath his mask, and saw his indifference. The great sage's rolling shadows slammed into Yang Jian's back, causing him to cough up a mouthful of blood. Yet, Yi Zichen's expression didn't change in the slightest. Yang Jian's heart was truly cold. Die. The great sage gripped the Rui Jingu Bang with both hands and swung it viciously at Yang Jian's head. At that moment, a hint of a smile flashed through Yang Jian's eyes. Suddenly, he transformed into a shadow and merged with the sky. When he reappeared, he was right behind Yi Zichen. It's finally over. The great sage's pupils constricted, but his eyes were filled with panic. He reached out and grabbed Yi Zichen. When he sensed Yang Jian's appearance, Yi Zichen was terrified as well, but inwardly, he let out a long sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Yang Jian was just about to put an end to this drama, but his hand, gripping his lance, trembled slightly. The person in front of him was one of his best friends, but now he was going to personally chop off his arm with his three-pointed, double-edged sword. Even though he knew this was just a show to trick the Xiao family, What are you waiting for? Do it! Yi Zichen's divine sense transmission exploded in Yang Jian's sea of consciousness. Yang Jian's hand trembled even more violently, then his expression froze. There was a flash of silver light. Yang Jian ruthlessly cut off the Hermit Emperor's lotus-like arm. He coughed up so much blood that his eyes turned red. He reached out and grabbed the arm, his eyes filled with savagery, but tears trickled down the corners of his eyes. You owe me this arm. I'm taking it back now. I was truly blind back then to call you my brother. Die. The halberd pierced through Yi Zichen's collarbone. At that moment, Pu Jingwan and Xiao Yumei arrived. Yang Jian. Pu Jingwan's eyes widened as she charged forward. Yang Jian glanced at the people in the sky, then turned tail and fled. The great sage and Pu Jingwan chased after him. Meanwhile, Xiao Yumei clung to Yi Zichen tightly and sealed the veins in his arm and collarbone. She bit her lip and landed within the Upheaval Alliance's courtyard. Wei Jie and the others were horrified when they saw this. Xiao Yumei bit her lip and shouted, "Yang Jian betrayed the alliance. Yang Jian betrayed the alliance and tried to kill the alliance leader. Send people, kill him! Kill him!" She screamed hysterically. She was a woman who'd just seen her lover gravely injured. She'd gone completely mad. Wei Jie didn't doubt her. He led Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu to contact the Alliance's ruler-level expert. Xiao Yumei bit her lip, took out a pill, and shoved it into Yi Zichen's mouth. "Do you have to go this far?" A divine sense transmission rang out in Yi Zichen's sea of consciousness. He feigned an expression of unbearable pain and sighed inwardly. It has to be like this. Otherwise, how could Yang Jian have a reasonable excuse to go to the Xiao family? By injuring me, we've pushed him completely against us. That's the only way he can live in relative safety. Chapter 1473. When would they see each other again? Yi Zichen and the others had decided to put on an act. All they had to do was send Yang Jian back to the Xiao family. At the very least, before the Xiao family betrayed the God Realm, Yang Jian wouldn't be able to see them again. Fortunately, they could still communicate via cell phones, but Yi Zichen planned to introduce them soon. He absolutely couldn't let Xiao Ting know that the cell phone's marketing had something to do with him. Otherwise, that wily old fox would feel deeply suspicious. "Can the Xiao family find out what's going on here?" "They should be able to," said Xiao Yumei. "The Upheaval Alliance hasn't had time to invite a formation master from the Supreme Hall to set up a seal. If the Xiao family wants to spy on us, they should be able to see what's going on here. Find his divine sense." Xiao Yumei lowered her gaze. "Before long," she roared, "who dares spy on the Upheaval Alliance? Who dares spy on the Upheaval Alliance?" A majestic aura burst forth, and Yi Zichen coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood. Xiao Yumei angrily reached out and wiped the blood from the corners of his mouth. "Help! Help me into my room." The Lightning Emperor's estate. Xiao Ting was currently sitting by the river in the inner courtyard. A trickle of water trickled through the cracks in the rocks, accompanied by gentle footsteps. He came back to his senses, his back to the footsteps, and looked out at the fragrant flowers and the chirping birds. "Emperor, I know everything," said Xiao Ting coldly. After a while, he turned around and said, "You sent someone to get in touch with him last night." "That's right," said Xiao Ting coolly. "Yes, but the people I sent out to contact him found a very hidden place. I didn't expect them to still notice him." Uncle An said, "I suspect, not bad." "I know what you suspect," said Xiao Ting with a smile. "But you're probably overthinking things. I can tell that Yang Jian and Yi Zichen really are at loggerheads." Uncle An said nothing. Only then did Xiao Ting retract the strand of divine sense he'd left in the Upheaval Alliance. "That child Yumei has really grown up. She even found my divine sense." In truth, Xiao Ting hadn't been paying attention to this from the start. When Yang Jian and the great sage fought, he'd been in the secret realm and had no idea what was going on outside. After hearing from Uncle An and learning that Yi Zichen and the others had returned, he'd begun observing. He was very satisfied with the result. Of course, he couldn't say with absolute certainty that all of this was true. Perhaps Yi Zichen had figured out what he was thinking and deliberately set up a trap for him. If Yi Zichen really had planned everything, then his temperament was truly terrifying. Even if Xiao Ting fell for it, it wouldn't be an injustice. "Eldest Miss?" Uncle An asked. "She is no longer a member of the Xiao family." Xiao Ting snorted coldly, then said, "There's no need to worry too much about Yang Jian and Yi Zichen's relationship. There's a 90% chance they've really fallen out. Otherwise, there's no need to go that far. Besides, I know Yume and Xiao Yan. Judging from Xiao Yan's expression, he was in a state of utter shock. Xiao Yume's hysterical roar proved that the anger in her heart wasn't fake. Even now, Xiao Ting wasn't completely sure if this was a battle of strategy or not. However, based on his observation of the performance of these people, at least with his eyesight, he did not see any problems. The only thing that made him suspicious was that when Yang Jian landed behind Yi Zichen, he didn't immediately attack. In the end, Yang Jian's bloodshot eyes made Xiao Ting interpret his hesitation as a sign of his loyalty to his friends. He hesitated, but in the end, he'd still attacked, and his actions had been swift and decisive. This meant that the last vestiges of their friendship had been severed. Sever ties? Only those with feelings would sever ties. If they truly didn't have feelings for each other, why would they do something so unnecessary? Where is Yang Jian, the emissary from the outside? Asked Xiao Ting. They've already chased him out of Heavenly God City, but I've already sent people to help him escape, replied Uncle An. Very good. Once he's free, send someone to get in touch with him. There's no need to go out of your way to recruit him. He's probably filled with resentment, but the Xiao family played a part in his actions. He must hold a grudge against them as well. You have to be careful with what you say. Try to convince him to join the Xiao family. That guy. He's very useful to me. Not only can he spy on the Upheaval Alliance, but he can also learn the secrets of the outside, instructed Xiao Yan. I understand. Uncle An nodded, then left the courtyard. Xiao Ting's wizened, tree-bark-like face twitched, almost as if he were smiling. It wasn't just the Lightning Emperor's estate and the Xiao family. The other factions in Heavenly God City took notice as well. The divine arbiter of the God Emperor's estate immediately reported this to Zhou Wu, but as soon as he learned that the Emperor's star was a member of the Shui family, he lost all interest in Yi Zichen. As a result, he wasn't in the mood to listen to the divine arbiter's report. Instead, he was focused on Shui Tai's situation. Undercurrents surged through Heavenly God City. No one would have guessed something like this would happen to the Upheaval Alliance. Their experts had suddenly betrayed them, and they'd even heavily injured their leader. However, in the hearts of many people, it couldn't be considered as surprising. They hadn't personally raised the Alliance's experts, and their leader's cultivation was so low. It was only natural that he'd met such a fate. The only question was how the Upheaval Alliance's backer, the Profound Pavilion, would resolve this matter. Speaking of the Profound Pavilion, a faction on par with the Lightning Emperor's estate, it had been nearly a month since they'd last appeared in Heavenly God City. There were rumors that the Profound Pavilion had a grudge with the God Emperor's estate. No one knew if that was true or not. For an entire day, Xiao Yume stayed by Yi Zichen's side, taking care of him. Meanwhile, Xiao Yan and Xiao Hu led the outsider rulers to capture Yang Jian. After Xiao Yume deliberately sensed Xiao Ting's spying, Wei Jie invited nearly 100 formation masters from the Supreme Hall. They expended vast sums of money and set up tens of thousands of seals around the Upheaval Alliance's headquarters. Now, the Upheaval Alliance's defenses were practically impregnable. Not even Xiao Ting could pry into them. To Xiao Ting, the sudden appearance of the seal was only natural. Someone could spy on the Upheaval Alliance, and they were enemies to begin with. It made sense that the Upheaval Alliance would spend so much money to hire the Supreme Hall's masters to set up formations. It was a pity that the Xiao family couldn't spy on the Upheaval Alliance any longer, but he'd already achieved his goal. Emperor, they're here. Uncle An entered the hall, his back hunched. The Lightning Emperor, Xiao Ting, had draped his purple imperial robes over his shoulders. The previous emperor had bestowed this robe upon him when he'd taken over as the new Lightning Emperor. Unless it was an important occasion or meeting an important person, he would rarely put on this robe. Purple robes and a golden crown, his aura majestic.